Chapter 1200. They thought they could persuade Wen Lanfeng, but they didn't know the story behind Wen Lanfeng. They didn't know Liu Yanqing's great influence on Wen Lanfeng, and they didn't expect this to happen. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sent here. Seeing Wen Lanfeng charging at him, a black full moon suddenly appeared in front of Yen Juexing. As his cultivation rose, so did the power of the Devil Blade. The black and red, baleful aura intertwined like endless ghosts, and the Devil Blade's edge was like a soul-stirring cold thunderbolt streaking across the sky. Even the onlookers were shocked. A snow-blue sword light shot out to meet the black full moon above his head. Boom! The blue light exploded and dispersed, and the Devil Blade was sent flying into the sky, turning into a small black dot. Wen Lanfeng's eyes flashed with blue light. He didn't expect a late-stage immortal emperor to be able to block his attack. He waved his hand, and another sword light shot out. The small black dot in the distance suddenly grew bigger, and the full moon returned with the momentum of thunder, blocking the blow again in an instant, using the curved tip of the wheel to defuse the blow. With a huge impact force, it turned into a ferocious and rapid spinning wheel. Instead, it slashed at Wen Lanfeng in the air, bringing with it a strong gust of wind that exploded. Yu Qianqiu was secretly shocked. He didn't expect Yen Juexing to become so powerful. Demon King 3 Knights and Eunuch Li were both surprised and happy. They were happy that Lord Demon God's Devil Blade was indeed extraordinary, but they were shocked that Yen Juexing would be in danger if he continued fighting. Sky Devil Fist. Demon King 3 Knights raised a monstrous demonic aura and waved his arm. A huge fist shadow the size of a mountain blasted at Wen Lanfeng. Demon Restriction Wheel. Eunuch Li slapped his palm, and a dozen shining white halos shot at Wen Lanfeng. In order to save Yen Juexing, the three of them attacked together with Yen Juexing's Devil Blade. Wen Lanfeng sensed danger. His eyes emitted a blue light. He swung his long, snow-blue hair, and a jagged, dazzling snow-blue light burst out from his body. He was like a blue sun that shone brightly. Boom! 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 With 3 loud explosions, the powerful shockwaves instantly destroyed all the peaks and valleys of the Myriad Saints Mountain. Countless disciples of the Myriad Saints Palace were annihilated amidst their screams, and the demonic cultivators scattered in all directions. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu had the protection of the Fire Soul profound weapon beside him. Otherwise, he would have to flee for his life as well. However, the Myriad Saints Palace beneath his feet had already been reduced to ashes in an instant. The Sky Devil Fist and the Forbidden Demon Wheel were smashed in an instant, and the Devil Blade was shaken away at the same time. Wen Lanfeng's white robe fluttered in the strong astral wind, and his snow-blue long hair fluttered in all directions. The blue light in his eyes shone brightly, and the blue cloud pattern between his eyebrows shone brightly, like a sword demon descending from heaven. As his body spun in the air, he waved his arms and shot out a dozen snow-blue sword shadows from his fingertips. Not good, the three of them exclaimed at the same time. However, a few sword shadows directly broke through Eunuch Li's defense and pierced through his chest at an unbelievable speed. Before he could use teleportation to dodge, a few pillars of blood spurted out from his chest. Eunuch Li clutched his chest in disbelief as blood began to flow from the corner of his mouth. Demonic succubus doppelganger. Demon King 3 Knights raised his eyebrows and clapped his palms. His body immediately turned into dozens of phantom shadows and exploded. A few shocking sword shadows that were shooting over at high speed missed. At this moment, Yen Juexing had also awakened from his rage. He also used the demonic succubus doppelganger technique, but he couldn't keep up with Demon King 3 Knights' speed. Just as the phantom shadows separated, he was pierced back to his original form by a few sword shadows. Fortunately, the Devil Blade returned in time to protect him, blocking the other few sword shadows for him. Boom! The Devil Blade let out a mournful cry, and Yen Juexing, who was behind the Devil Blade, fell to the ground with blood spurting out of his eye sockets. The Devil Blade that was shaken away shot back again and hooked onto Yen Juexing's clothes, trying to escape with him. Meanwhile, Uniquely clutched his chest and forced himself to flee. However, the two of them were too slow. When Lanfeng's fluttering blue long hair made a hissing sound in the air. In the blink of an eye, she caught up to Uniquely. She raised her arm, and a snow blue light burst out from her palm, condensing into a huge sword shadow made of pure energy. She held it in her hand and swung it, cutting Uniquely into two. Blood splattered from the sky. No. In the distance, Demon King Three Knights let out a heaven-shaking mournful cry. When Lanfeng chased after Yin Zhuixing again, she slapped the side of the devil blade with her palm, sending it flying. Her other hand drew out a cold light and cut Yin Zhuixing into two. After killing two in an instant, she turned into a stream of light with a swish of her blue hair and chased after Demon King Three Knights with her sword. Demon King Three Knights knew that he wasn't a match for this person, so he used the devil-like glimpse to escape. The evil Dao heroes who were watching the battle from afar were also scared out of their wits as they fled for their lives. Great! Yu Qianqiu applauded excitedly. He didn't expect Wen Lanfeng to be so powerful. However, when he saw the fallen Yin Zhuixing's body gush out a ball of black light, Yu Qianqiu turned pale with fright and shouted angrily, "Kill!" The Fire Soul profound weapon immediately rushed over, wanting to exterminate Yin Zhuixing completely. It chased after the ball of black light, as if it was also very afraid of the true Samadhi fire. Boom! There was a loud sound in the air. Yu Qianqiu suddenly looked up and saw that the void had been torn open again. An incomparably terrifying aura seeped out to the vast land. That familiar giant devil claw once again stretched out from the sky and grabbed the Fire Soul profound weapon, causing it to explode into the true Samadhi fire. A ball of devil chi gushed out from the devil claw to shake off the true Samadhi fire. She stretched out 2 fingers to summon the giant devil blade. With a light flick of the 2 fingers, the devil blade rumbled in the air like a thunderbolt, creating a black devil flame that chased after Wen Lanfeng like a black meteor. That imposing manner was truly earth-shattering. Wen Lanfeng suddenly turned back. Blue light shone brightly in his eyes. Blue light burst out from his whole body and quickly converged. His whole body instantly turned into a giant blue sword shadow and forcefully collided with the black meteor that was crashing towards the heaven and earth. Bang! The heaven and earth were shrouded in blue light and black light. Even the light of the sun was thousands of times inferior. The soil on the ground was monstrous and pushed away in all directions. Without protection, Yu Qianqiu directly hid back in Utopia to avoid the wind. After avoiding the wind, he appeared again. At this time, there was a huge pit with a radius of 100,000 miles under Yu Qianqiu's feet. The giant devil blade that stood tall was surrounded by a monstrous devil chi. It stood motionless on the ground, and there were many snow blue stars around it. Wen Lanfeng was nowhere to be seen, and the giant devil claw that tore the void had disappeared. There was only a pair of dreamy and indifferent eyes looking down from the sky. Wen Lanfeng was dead? Yu Qianqiu looked at the snow blue stars and suddenly trembled uncontrollably. He waved his arm and pointed at the indifferent eyes looking down from the sky and shouted angrily, "Devil God, I swear to kill you." The indifferent eyes looked at him for a while, faintly revealing some indifference and disdain, and gradually disappeared in the sky. The giant devil blade that stood tall between heaven and earth shrank in an instant and absorbed all the devil chi. With a swoosh, it flew into the distant sky, and no one knew where it went. Devil God, I swear to kill you. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the sky where the devil I disappeared and shouted angrily again. As soon as the devil blade left, the countless snow blue stars that had been stunned suddenly began to spin faster and faster. When they gathered together, a dazzling blue light erupted. After the light disappeared, Wen Lanfeng's figure fell heavily from the sky and fell to the ground, unconscious and motionless. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He didn't expect that a person that was turned into ashes could be reformed. He immediately turned into a stream of light and rushed over. holding Wen Lanfeng to check. Wen Lanfeng's face and body were covered with blue blood. He was in a deep coma, but his bodily functions were still intact. He was not dead yet. Yu Qianqiu was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect that Wen Lanfeng could survive the devil god's attack. The blue sea essence was indeed magical. At this moment, streams of light rushed over from all directions. Yu Qianqiu's expression froze. He knew that Demon King 3 Knights and the others had returned. Now that he had lost the Fire Soul Mystic weapon and when Lanfeng was seriously injured and unconscious, he couldn't stay here any longer. He immediately disappeared with Wen Lanfeng in his arms. Demon King 3 Knights, who had rushed back, floated in the center of the huge crater. He looked around in shock. He saw the demonic claw that tore through the void. It was the demonic claw of the demonic god technique. He could recognize it at a glance. The demonic cultivators who rushed over also looked at the endless pit in shock. The domineering great Demon King floated behind Demon King 3 Knights and said with lingering fear, "It seems that Lord Devil God personally tore through the void and attacked. It was Lord Devil God who saved me." The excited Demon Lord 3 Knights nodded heavily. He raised his head to look at where the demon god had torn open the void, then suddenly knelt down on one knee in the void with great sincerity, prostrating himself in front of the demon god. The demonic cultivators also knelt down and bowed in the same direction. Utopia's Misty Palace. As soon as Yu Qianqiu walked into the palace with the unconscious Wen Lanfeng in his arms, everyone exclaimed and surrounded him. Lu Yanqing even opened her arms and snatched Wen Lanfeng from Yu Qianqiu's hands. Kneeling on the ground, she stroked Wen Lanfeng's messy blue hair with trembling hands and cried, "What happened to him? How'd he get hurt like this? Didn't you say he would be fine with his cultivation?" Hong Tailong also gasped, pointing at the unconscious Wen Lanfeng and asking Yu Qianqiu, "What's going on?" With his cultivation, who else could injure him to this extent? Even in the god world, he could be considered an expert. The muscles on Yu Qianqiu's face twitched fiercely, and he said gloomily, "Who else but that shameless devil god?" The devil god tore through the void and attacked again. "Devil god!" The crowd exclaimed in unison. To them, this was such an unreachable figure. The third time. It's the third time. Yu Qianqiu clenched his teeth and gestured to the crowd. "This is the third time that guy has attacked me so brazenly. They say it's not the third time. That bastard devil god has gone too far." Chapter 1201. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Yu Qianqiu suddenly grabbed Hong Tailong's clothes and said sternly, "Isn't it said that the experts of the divine realm are not allowed to attack the lower realms? Why does the demon god attack again and again without anyone stopping him?" Hong Tailong helplessly let go of his hand, shook his head and sighed. The other experts of the divine realm naturally don't dare to do so, but the demon god is the #1 expert of the divine realm, who can do anything to him if he doesn't abide by the rules. Unless Tao personally takes action, no one in the divine realm dares to do anything to him. This is the capital of his arrogance. After saying that, he squatted beside Wen Lanfeng and carefully examined him. He then patted Wen Lanfeng's chest and said with relief, "Fortunately, it's nothing serious. With his cultivation base, he should recover very quickly. To be able to survive the demon god's attack is already a great fortune in misfortune. My Fire Soul Mystic weapon has been destroyed by the demon god's attack." Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth, his heart filled with hatred. Once the demon god attacked, even a Fire Soul Mystic weapon's chance of resurrection was cut off. He didn't know how the demon god did it. As long as he's fine. Hong Tailong stood up and gestured to everyone to carry Wen Lanfeng in. Bai Sujin and the other women immediately helped Lu Yanqing up and comforted her, while Wei Chunxiu and the other men carried Wen Lanfeng into the room. At this time, Hong Tailong turned around and patted Yu Qianqiu's shoulder, saying with a smile, "The Fire Soul Mystic weapon can be refined again. Anyway, there are many experts in the Divine Mausoleum. The key is that you now have the Metal Spirit and Earth Spirit. After devouring them, Not only will your cultivation base soar, you can also refine a large number of Earth Soul Mystic weapons and Gold Soul Mystic weapons. All in all, it's a big profit this time. As soon as these words came out, the haze on Yu Qianzhou's face immediately dispersed. Only then did he remember that Jin Tai and Hudu had been captured by him. He immediately sneered and said, "Damn it, I was almost confused by the demon god. How could I forget this? We're the captured people. Locked up. By the way, that woman's body, they said it was the wife of Jin Tai's subordinate. What's going on?" Hong Tailong had a curious look on his face, as if he was trying to find some clues from Jiang Chen's face. He said enticingly, "If she is very important to you, why don't we buy her and bring her to the mausoleum of the god of sin? She might have a chance of resurrection there." Yu Qianzhou's face darkened. He pondered for a while and said slowly, "No need. She committed suicide. Before she died, she wanted me to bury her beside her mother. I should fulfill her wish. What's more, since he was dead, why bother with resurrecting after countless years? He might as well turn over a new leaf and start a new life, forgetting all the happiness and unhappiness of his previous life. Even if I can really be reborn, even if I die, I don't want to hide in the mausoleum of the god of sin and spend countless years in a daze. It's better to end everything once and for all. You don't want to be reborn." Hong Tailong was taken aback. He then chuckled strangely and said, "Is it because you robbed someone else's tomb in the mausoleum of the god of sin and are afraid of retribution if you hide in the mausoleum of the god of sin? So this is called gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. You can think whatever you want." Yu Qianzhou let out a breath and said, "Where is she? I'm going to fulfill her last wish." Hong Tailong led him to the room where Mu Tianjiao's body was kept. Yu Qianzhou stared at her quietly for a while before extending his palm. A water dragon emerged from his palm and gently washed away the dirt and bloodstains on Mu Tianjiao's face. He then carried her and disappeared from the room with Hong Tailong. The two of them appeared in a valley not far from the Four Links Chamber of Commerce. They could see traces of a fight, but the two of them did not pay too much attention to it. They flashed into the air and looked at the town that was almost in ruins. The entire town was like a dead land, with not a single living person in sight. When the two of them arrived at the dilapidated Four Links Chamber of Commerce, they discovered a troublesome matter. Where was the grave of Mu Tianjiao's mother? Fortunately, the two of them found Nan Tianlong, who was struggling at death's door and had lost an arm. If they didn't rescue him in time, he would probably be dead. Hong Tailong quickly performed the rescue, and it took a while for Nan Tianlong to recover. However, Hong Tailong secretly transmitted his voice. "His injuries are too severe. I'm helping to keep him alive, but he won't be able to hold on for long. Ask whatever you want to ask." Nan Tianlong, on the other hand, stared blankly at Mu Tianjiao, who was in Yu Qianzhou's embrace, and two streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. When the demonic path appeared, too many people died. Yu Qianzhou was already numb to it. He could only sigh and say, "Nan Tianlong." Mu Tianjiao's last wish was to be buried together with her mother. "Where's her mother's grave?" Nan Tianlong whimpered and said vaguely, 50 miles to the north, in the flower field." Yu Qianzhou carried Mu Tianjiao and turned to leave. As a result, Hong Tailong's hand on Nan Tianlong's back loosened, and Nan Tianlong could no longer breathe. He fell to the ground with a thud. Without turning his head, Yu Qianzhou sighed and said, "Bring him along." The two of them carried Nan Tianlong and Nan Tianlong to a place 50 miles to the north. In a flower field, there were two tombs side by side. When Yu Qianzhou landed and saw Mu Bing's name on the tombstone on the left, he knew they had arrived. Yu Qianzhou used the earth art to build a grave beside the tombstone on the right. He then used the metal art to cast a golden coffin and placed Mu Tianjiao inside. After covering the coffin, he buried Nan Tianlong beside Mu Bing before helping the two of them erect tombstones. Before leaving, Yu Qianzhou found a pine tree sapling from a nearby mountain and planted it beside Mu Tianjiao's grave. He used the wood art to make the pine tree grow rapidly into a huge tree to shelter Mu Tianjiao from the wind and rain. After doing all this, He held on to Mu Tianjiao's tombstone and stood there for a long time. Then he left with Hong Tailong. He did not say a single word from the beginning to the end. In Utopia's military camp, Yu Qianqiu stood on the platform and looked down at Jin Tailong, He Tu, and Qing Tian. It was unknown who had been kind enough to throw a woman's clothes for Qing Tian to wear. I have some questions to ask you. You'd better answer me honestly, and you might have a chance to live. Yu Qianqiu did not waste any time. He looked at the three trembling people and asked, "Did Wenrui leak the secret to 3 knights when he attacked the realm of the divine ruin?" "Yes." Jin Tailong and Qing Tian answered immediately. Qing Tian added, "Yan Zhuixing is Wenrui's master." His face stiffened. He really did not know about this. Demon Eye Ecstasy. It seems like Wenrui has always been controlled by Yan Zhuixing. Yu Qianqiu nodded. His hands were clenched into fists behind his back. Right now, he only hated himself. He regretted not listening to Zhang Peng's words in a moment of soft-heartedness, causing the entire army to be annihilated. His sin was unforgivable. It's not time for the realm of the divine ruin to open yet. How did 3 knights get in? Yu Qianqiu said in a gloomy tone. His face became miserable again. He still did not know about this. Jin Tailong lowered his head guiltily. In the end, Qing Tian, Great Devil King, sold him out on the spot. She pointed at him and said loudly, "Demon King, 3 knights did not know the method to enter the realm of the divine ruin." It was Jin Tailong who suggested that Demon King 3 knights go to the ancient forest to find Mu Yuanzi. Jin Tailong even personally accompanied 3 knights to the ancient forest. Only then did 3 knights have the method to open the realm of the divine ruin. Jin Tailong looked at Qing Tian with resentment and immediately knelt down in front of Yu Qianqiu. He hurriedly explained, "I had no choice." Yu Qianqiu expressionlessly looked at him and said word by word. In other words, the method to enter the realm of the divine ruin was leaked by Mu Yuanzi. "Since you went to the ancient forest with 3 knights, then tell me everything in detail. You cannot hide anything. Otherwise, you will die a horrible death. If you don't believe me, you can try." Jin Tailong was eager to push all responsibility away. He immediately told the story of how he and Demon King 3 knights went to the ancient forest to find Mu Yuanzi. At the same time, he emphasized that it was 3 knights who forced him to go with them. He did not say a single word when he got there, and Mu Yuanzi's attitude towards him was very bad. It seemed like he wanted to tell Yu Qianqiu that he, 3 knights, and Mu Yuanzi had always been at odds with each other. However, he had no way of proving that he and Yu Qianqiu were on the same side. After learning what had happened, Yu Qianqiu was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. That old guy could clearly hide in the Woodkiller Sea without any worries. As long as he didn't come out, Demon King 3 knights couldn't do anything to him. However, he didn't have any self-respect and thought that it had nothing to do with him even if everyone outside died. Yu Qianqiu immediately shouted angrily towards the distance. "Mu Yuanzi, do you really think that you are the local tyrant of the 3 realms and no one dares to touch you? Others can't enter the Woodkiller Sea, but I can come and go as I please. Just you wait." His voice reverberated, filled with resentment. "It's not worth getting angry with someone like that. We can slowly deal with them." Hong Tailong coughed, reminding him how to deal with the 3. Yu Qianqiu suddenly stared at the 3 and sneered. "Jin Tailong, stay. The others will be temporarily locked up." Hearing that, Jin Tailong immediately begged for his life, kneeling and kowtowing. In order to survive, he would do anything. Usually, such people were the most dangerous. Zhang Peng quickly brought his men and escorted He Tu and Qing Tian away. Before they left, the 2 of them rejoiced and looked at the crying Jin Tailong with a pitiful gaze. When the other 2 couldn't see what was happening here, Yu Qianqiu gave Hong Tailong a meaningful glance. Hong Tailong flashed behind Jin Tai and slammed his palm onto Jin Tai's head. Pong! Jin Tai's head instantly exploded, causing golden dust to fill the sky and drift in all directions with the wind. It was as if the entire Utopia had turned into a world of golden dust. Even the people from Misty Palace flashed outside, looking at the beautiful golden world far away. It was even more dazzling than fireworks. An hour later, all the flying golden powder had fallen down, and the surrounding area of tens of miles had become a dazzling golden field under the sunlight. Hong Tai Long held a wriggling white ball of light in his palm. He immediately laughed and said, "Jean Tai Long, stop resisting pointlessly. Once this old dragon erases the memories of your primordial spirit, all the grudges between us will be written off." His two palms quickly hugged the white ball of light, and when the white ball of light completely stopped wriggling, he tossed it onto the general selection stage. Holding the white ball of light, Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth and sucked it into his stomach like a whale drawing water. Then, he quickly sat cross-legged on the general selection stage and closed his eyes. Chapter 1202. Boiling. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu's body could only be described as boiling. After the white ball of light was guided into his dantian, a bit of its essence transformed into Jean Tai's appearance. He swallowed the metal attribute white crystal bead into his stomach, then sat cross-legged on the spot that belonged to the white crystal bead. Immediately, it completely fused with Yu Qianqiu's body, becoming a part of Yu Qianqiu's body. The boundless cultivation base that he brought with him naturally became Yu Qianqiu's cultivation base. At the same time, Yu Qianqiu's fleshly body seemed to be very unused to such a powerful cultivation base. To be exact, he was not used to how to control such a powerful cultivation base. The boundless cultivation base within his dantian surged like raging waves. Yu Qianqiu quickly guided it out and circulated it within his meridians. In an instant, the unparalleled cultivation base was like a river bursting through a dam, gushing out violently. It rapidly rushed into his meridians throughout his limbs and bones, jolting the blood and qi in his entire body into chaos. The pain it brought was unimaginable to outsiders. Yu Qianqiu's entire body turned red, and traces of blood could be seen faintly seeping out from his 7 orifices. Hong Tai Long, who was observing him from below the stage, actually heard the raging roars of a raging river coming from his body. In order to lessen the pain, Hong Tai Long flashed up and sat cross-legged behind Yu Qianqiu. He placed both his palms on Yu Qianqiu's back, using his powerful cultivation base to help guide the berserk energy within Yu Qianqiu's body. The two of them sat on the stage for 3 days and 3 nights. When Hong Tai Long retracted his palms, Yu Qianqiu slowly opened his eyes. Under the impact of his powerful cultivation base, the shackles in his fleshly body that had yet to reach his cultivation base were all broken through. Finally, the raging cultivation base in his body was tamed into a slowly flowing river, becoming one with his body and mind, completely submitting to his control. Looks like the difference in cultivation base is too great. Devouring isn't that easy. Not bad, not bad. His cultivation base broke through to the mid-stage minor god stage in one fell swoop. Kinti's death was worthwhile. His cultivation base was not wasted. Hong Tai Long stood up and laughed. Yu Qianqiu also stood up in surprise. He opened his arms and felt the brand new world that he could control in his body. It was a level that he could not even dream of before. It turned out that it was so powerful. He opened his arms to embrace the heavens and earth and softly shouted, "Come back." All of the golden powder that had been scattered within a radius of several tens of miles immediately rushed back to the military camp. In the blink of an eye, all of the golden powder had condensed into Kim Tai's original appearance. However, his eyes were closed peacefully, making him look like a lifelike statue. Below the stage, there was a finger-thick golden stick. Yu Qianqiu stretched out his 5 claws, and it immediately flashed into his hand. Following his will, it quickly turned into a golden stick with a balanced length and thickness. It was Kintai's golden cloud stick. This thing already has spirituality. As long as it is nurtured in a certain environment, it will probably become a second gold spirit in many years. Yu Qianqiu held the golden cloud stick in his hand and examined it. He immediately understood its attributes. Then he casually tossed it, and it stabbed into the ground beside Qinyi's statue. Qinyi's statue actually reached out a hand and grabbed it. It stood there motionlessly, like a guardian god in golden armor in a utopia military camp. Yu Qianqiu then carefully examined the changes in his cultivation base. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Qinyi's cultivation base has already reached the mid-stage minor god stage. After my ascendant immortal cultivation base fused with it, it actually did not grow at all. Looks like my original cultivation base is really not worth mentioning compared to Qinyi's. That's natural. The higher the cultivation base, the greater the gap between each level. Similarly, it's harder to improve. It's not as simple as 1 plus 1. Hong Tailong laughed and made an analogy. This is also the reason why an expert can deal with many experts with slightly lower cultivation base. Zhang Peng, who was silently listening to their conversation behind the stage, finally understood what had happened to his master. Immediately, he flashed to the front of the stage and congratulated. "Congratulations, master!" Yu Qianqiu nodded with a beaming smile and said, "Now, we can bring Huda here. I'll help them get out of this abyss of suffering." Hong Tailong clicked his tongue on one side and shook his head. Then, he flashed away from the stage to make preparations. Yes. Zhang Peng quickly accepted the order and left. Not long after, he brought Hutu, who had a nervous expression on her face, over. Hong Tailong did not say a word of nonsense. Taking advantage of the fact that Hutu's cultivation base was sealed and could not fight back, he went behind Hutu and slapped her head cleanly. Boom! A sound like the collapse of a mountain was heard. Yellow dust was set off and spread out in all directions. Hong Tailong dispersed the surrounding yellow dust and held a yellow light ball that was wriggling rapidly in his hand. He directly erased the memory of Hutu's primordial spirit. When the yellow light ball stopped wriggling completely, he threw it to Yu Qianqiu. As soon as Yu Qianqiu caught it, he immediately swallowed it into his stomach without hesitation. He quickly closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. As soon as the yellow light ball entered his dantian, a bit of its essence turned into Hutu's appearance. His eyes lit up when he saw the yellow crystal bead. He could not wait to grab it and swallow it. His body immediately flashed with light, and he sat cross-legged on the spot where the yellow crystal bead used to be. This time, because Yu Qianqiu already had the cultivation base of the small god middle stage, it was not difficult for him to control Hutu's cultivation base. Coupled with his previous experience, it could be said that he was very familiar with the process. Hong Tailong, who was standing below the stage, saw that he did not need any more help and was happy to be at ease inside the misty palace when Lan Feng, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. Blue light shot out from his eyes. Under the powerful energy of the blue sea essence, when Lan Feng's injuries were almost healed in a few days, there was no doubt that the blue sea essence was magical. When Lan Feng's body was filled with a large amount of blue sea essence, he did not use the blue sea essence to cleanse his muscles and marrow like others did. Instead, he fused a large amount of blue sea essence with his body without knowing why. It could be said that when Lan Feng now had an immortal body, as long as his consciousness did not collapse, he could be reborn again even if his bones were turned into ashes. This was also the reason why he could resurrect after being killed by the demonic god. Seeing that he had woken up, Lu Yanqing, who had been waiting by his side, immediately hugged him and examined him. After finding that he was fine, she kept muttering to herself, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I should not have agreed to let you go out and take risks. Otherwise, you would not have been injured." When Lan Feng's blue eyes looked at her quietly, he reached out and stroked her hair, saying, "I believe you. You're not wrong." Although the words spoken were words of love, the tone was still cold, and there was a faint trace of the charm of metal rubbing against each other. "I can't let you go on like this." Lu Yanqing suddenly got up and looked at him with tears in her eyes. She bit her lip and hesitated for a long time. Then, with a trembling voice, she grabbed his hand and asked, if I let you disperse the huge energy in your body, would you be willing? Wen Lanfeng sat up straight and looked at her quietly with his blue eyes. He nodded and said, "Whatever you say, I'll do it. But at the same time, it will also disperse your cultivation. You've gone through untold hardships to get to where you are today. Are you really willing?" Lu Yanqing's voice trembled. Her hand holding his hand was also trembling. "I believe you." Wen Lanfeng's tone and expression did not have a trace of hesitation. Large tears fell from Lu Yanqing's eyes. She buried her head and choked for a long time, saying repeatedly, "It's all my fault, don't cry. I don't know why, but seeing you cry makes my heart ache." Wen Lanfeng held her face with both hands. "No. Even if you blame me for the rest of your life, I can't let you continue like this." Lu Yanqing suddenly grabbed his hands and pulled him with great difficulty. Come with me." The two of them walked out of Misty Palace hand in hand. When someone asked Wen Lanfeng how he was, Lu Yanqing only said that he was fine and wanted to take Wen Lanfeng around. As soon as the two of them left Misty Palace, they flew into the distance, in Utopia's military camp. After Yu Qianqiu fused the two cultivations into his body, Yu Qianqiu checked the situation in his dantian. At that moment, the fire spirit, metal spirit, and earth spirit had returned. He was still missing the wood spirit and water spirit. He did not know how the five spirits would react when they returned. When he slowly opened his eyes and stood up, Hong Tailong, who was wandering in the military camp square, immediately flashed over. When he realized that he could no longer see through Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, he immediately asked impatiently, "How is it?" The difference between each level is indeed huge. After fusing with the earth spirit middle stage cultivation, my current cultivation has only just entered the small god late stage. Although Yu Qianqiu's tone was a little regretful, the excitement on his face was overflowing. "You brat, show off all you want. Other people might not be able to reach this level even after cultivating for many years. You're just showing off after getting the benefits." Hong Tailong laughed out loud. "Late stage small god. Not bad, not bad. Your cultivation is even higher than mine. This old dragon is so envious. Congratulations, master. Congratulations, master." Zhang Peng also flashed over with an envious expression. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but chuckle proudly for a while. Suddenly, he spread out his arms, and the yellow dust that filled the sky quickly gathered with the Utopia military camp as the center. Not long later, a khaki-colored earth spirit sculpture stood beside the golden Tailong sculpture. "I'm still missing the wood spirit and the water spirit. I already know that the wood spirit is Mu Yuanzi, and I still don't know where the water spirit is. Now that I have the capital to refine the earth spirit mystic weapon, Mu Yuanzi will be mine sooner or later." Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "I just don't know what Mu Yuanzi's cultivation is like. I hope he won't disappoint me. Although I haven't seen that Mu Yuanzi before, I reckon that he's at least at the level of a great god. You'll be rich after devouring him." As for the water spirit, Hong Tailong muttered to himself for a while and shook his head slightly. "I don't know if there's a water spirit in the lower three realms, but I heard that the water god in the god realm is a water spirit. But that woman is one of the ancient gods, and her cultivation is terrifyingly high. I'm afraid it's not very possible for you to devour her." Chapter 1203. The water god of the divine world is the water spirit. She's one of the ancient gods. Yu Qianqiu was startled, and his facial muscles twitched as he said, "Devouring the ancient gods? I don't have such good teeth. Her cultivation must be at the late ancient god stage, right? To be able to become an ancient god, her cultivation is naturally not simple." Hong Tailong shook his head and said, "She definitely has the cultivation of the late ancient god stage. As for whether it is the late ancient god stage, I don't know." "What do you mean?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Zhang Peng, who was at the side, also pricked up his ears to listen carefully. This level of information wasn't something that could be heard at any time. Usually, there wasn't even a place to inquire about it, so he naturally couldn't miss it. "Let me explain it to you this way." Hong Tailong pointed to the sky and said, "A long time ago, those great ancient gods already had the cultivation of a late ancient god stage. It can be said that they're the first people in this world to have the cultivation of the late ancient god stage. However, there are two people with higher cultivation, and they are great god E and war god. Even my coiling dragon ancestor isn't a match for them. Therefore, I suspect that there is a higher cultivation than the late ancient god stage. The cultivation of Tao is likely to be far beyond the late ancient god stage. Otherwise, how could he suppress the gods? Therefore, I also don't know how high the cultivation of the current water god is. In fact, other than those ancient gods, I reckon that no one knows the cultivation of the ancient gods. You know what I mean, right? Yu Qianqiu silently digested the contents of his words. After a long time, he slowly sighed and said, "In that case, the demon god who could defeat the other ancient gods must have a cultivation that is beyond our imagination. To defeat him, even if I could devour the water god, I'm afraid I'm still not a match for him." Cough, cough. Hong Tailong coughed twice and said, "You're thinking too far ahead. Against a person at that level, even if you add 100,000 Yu Qianqiu together, it still wouldn't be enough to kill him. Do you think that the person who is known as the Divine Realm's #1 expert is just joking around? Let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's settle the matter in front of us first. What about that azure sky tree demon?" Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and waved at Zhang Peng, signaling him to bring Qing Tian over. Zhang Peng accepted the order and left. After a while, Qing Tian followed behind him leisurely. She seemed to have dressed up meticulously. She was wearing a simple dress, but her waist, breasts, and buttocks were all over the place. She was curvaceous and graceful. Her hair was also carefully combed, making her face look very beautiful. However, when the great devil king saw Hutu and Kintai, who were motionless like two statues on the square, a trace of panic flashed across her face. However, she still maintained her best state and bowed to Yu Qianqiu. After that, she stood there seductively and looked at Yu Qianqiu affectionately. Every frown and movement of her eyes was very attractive. Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong looked at each other in dismay. They knew that this woman was still making her final struggle. She wanted to use the only asset she had to save her life. Yu Qianqiu coughed and said, "Qing Tian, it would be a pity to kill such a great beauty like you." Hong Tailong and Zhang Peng immediately looked at him. Their eyes were filled with suspicion. They suspected that he had taken a fancy to her. When the great devil king heard this, her eyes lit up. She immediately twisted her snake-like waist and knelt down. She covered her face and said, "I hope that my lord will take pity on me and give me another chance. I will definitely do my best to repay you. I will definitely not disappoint my lord." Her appearance was really pitiful. "I also can't bear to kill you. How about this? I will give you another chance." Yu Qianqiu pointed at Hong Tailong and Zhang Peng and said, "If you can make one of them fall in love with you, I can be merciful." Hong Tailong and Zhang Peng cried out at the same time. The great devil king looked left and right, then looked at Yu Qianqiu's serious expression. She then slowly stood up and walked toward Hong Tailong. In the end, Hong Tailong's eyes widened like a bull's eyes. He said sternly, "If you dare to come any closer, I will kill you with a single palm strike." The coquettish expression on Qing Tian's face froze. She turned around and weakly walked toward Zhang Peng. She bit her lip and looked like a little wife who had been wronged. However, Zhang Peng was even more direct. He coldly harumphed and said, "Scram." Qing Tian suddenly didn't know what to do. Her eyes turned as she tried to think of a solution. On the stage, Yu Qianqiu laughed and said, "Since the two of you don't fancy her, I will reluctantly accept her." As he said this, he had already appeared in front of her and reached out to hug her waist. Joy flashed in the great devil king's eyes. She took the opportunity to lean into his embrace and sob. She sobbed and said, "Thank you, Lord, for not killing me." However, she didn't know that she had met someone who didn't mean what he said. Yu Qianqiu hugged her and raised his hand to slap her head. A layer of yellow soil quickly wrapped around her. Hong Tailong's and Zhang Peng's expressions twitched. They watched as the clear sky demon king, who was wrapped in yellow soil, slowly shrank. Suddenly, the yellow soil exploded, and a yellow pearl landed in Yuchincho's hand. Yuchincho coldly pinched the bead and looked at it. He said to himself in a low voice, "Small god, middle stage, earth's soul, mystic weapon." He looked like he could kill without batting an eyelid. He casually tossed the bead onto the ground, and it immediately sank. Not long later, the ground trembled, and many large cracks appeared. A mound of earth rose up, and a huge earth person walked out. However, as the earth person's footsteps trembled, there was also the faint sound of thunder. The three of them abruptly raised their heads and looked toward the sky in the distance. Hong Tai-Long said in astonishment, "Could it be that the Earth's soul mystic weapon can communicate with the heaven and earth aspect?" Yuchincho frowned and closed his eyes. The various scenes in Utopia flashed through his mind. After locking onto the source of the thunderbolts, Yuchincho suddenly opened his eyes and bellowed furiously, "What is that stupid woman doing now? What's going on?" Hong Tai-Long asked, puzzled. Zhang Peng was also at a loss. He didn't know who the stupid woman was. "We'll know once we take a look." Yuchincho pointed at the huge earth person, and it immediately sank into the ground. The ground quickly became flat, and a yellow bead landed in his hand. He waved his hand, and the three of them disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already on an island in the Utopia Sea. There were snow-blue thunderbolts crisscrossing in the clear sky. The source of the thunderbolts didn't come from the sky, but from Wen Lanfeng's body. At this moment, Wen Lanfeng was kneeling on the highest peak of the island. His hands were deeply inserted into the soil, and his face was filled with pain. From time to time, he would raise his head and let out an extremely dull ha-ha sound. The sound was roaring in his throat, but he tried his best not to let it out. He was like a beast that had been inhumanely abused, and he was clearly forcefully suppressing the endless pain to not let out a sound. His face was flushed red, and the veins on his neck were bulging. His lips had been bitten off by himself, and blue blood was dripping down. Under his tattered white robe, his muscles were undulating. It was because he was in too much pain, and his muscles were so tense that they were trembling violently. It was unknown how much pain a person had to endure to torture himself to such a horrifying state. The source of the snow-blue thunderbolts that filled the sky came from Wen Lanfeng, who was kneeling on the ground. Majestic energy was constantly released from his body, turning into thunderbolts that dissipated in the air. The scene was shocking, but it was extremely tragic. At the foot of the mountain, Lu Yanqing also knelt on the ground, looking at Wen Lanfeng, who was in pain on the top of the mountain, crying inconsolably. Her silver teeth had also bitten through her lips, and her lower jaw was dripping with blood. Her fingers were pinched into the flesh of her palms, and blood was dripping between her fingers. The three people who suddenly appeared stood behind Lu Yanqing, and each of them looked at the scene with a moved expression. At a glance, the three of them knew that Wen Lanfeng was dissipating his cultivation. There was nothing crueler than this for cultivators, especially experts who had not obtained their cultivation easily. It was more painful than killing them, and almost no one was willing to do this. The surroundings of the island were stirred up by the release of such a huge amount of energy, and the waves were surging violently. Zhang Peng turned his head to look at his master, who was standing in the wind with a solemn expression. Hong Tai-Long also suddenly turned his head, looked at Yuchincho, and said in a low voice, "We can't let him continue. His cultivation is very useful to us. I will think of a way to make him stop." Yuchincho, whose green robes fluttered in the wind, suddenly reached out and pressed his hand on Hong Tai-Long's chest. He shook his head slightly and said, "He has already helped me enough. He even died once for me. I will not force him to do anything else. I cannot rely on others forever. I will do the rest myself, since it is his own decision, as long as he does not regret it. I have nothing to say." Sigh. What a pity. Hong Tai-Long stomped his feet and sighed. The gruesome scene lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. Yuchincho and the other two watched silently. Such a huge commotion had attracted the attention of almost everyone in Utopia. When the men and women saw what was happening, they were left speechless. After 10 days and 10 nights, the snow-blue thunderbolt released from Wen Lanfeng's body finally disappeared. It was unimaginable how powerful Wen Lanfeng's cultivation had become after releasing such powerful energy for 10 days and 10 nights in a row. However, Wen Lanfeng finally collapsed powerlessly on the top of the mountain, motionless. Wen Lanfeng, Lu Yanqing shouted at the top of her voice, which had become hoarse from crying. She flashed to the top of the mountain and sat on the ground with the unconscious Wen Lanfeng in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Yu Qianqiu slowly let out a breath and flashed to the top of the mountain. The others also followed silently to see what was going on. At this moment, Wen Lanfeng's snow-blue hair had turned black again. His thick snow-blue eyebrows had also returned to black. Red blood flowed out of his bitten lip. The light blue cloud pattern between his eyebrows had also disappeared, and he had returned to his original appearance. His eyes were tightly shut, and his face was deathly pale. Chapter 1204. The wind and clouds in the sky gradually subsided, and the sea calmed down. Yu Qianqiu squatted down and grabbed one of Wen Lanfeng's hands to check. He found that although his body was extremely weak, there was no major problem. He then took out a nourishing elixir and put it into his mouth. He used his powerful cultivation to help him refine and absorb it. Then he helped him quickly straighten out the blood in his body. Not long after, Wen Lanfeng woke up. When Wen Lanfeng opened his eyes and saw Lu Yanqing crying in front of him, a happy smile appeared on his face. He slowly reached out to help her wipe her tears and said softly, "Don't cry, I'm fine." Although his voice was weak, it was much more emotional than the sword devil Wen Lanfeng's words. Everyone also heard some information from his words. They guessed that Wen Lanfeng's memory had really recovered, and he should also remember what happened after he lost his memory. Otherwise, he would not have said that he was fine. Your cultivation. Lu Yanqing shook her head in pain and cried, "I really don't want to see you muddle along like that again. Will you hate me?" Wen Lanfeng struggled to open his arms and held her in his arms. He was weak, but he smiled warmly and said, "Why would I hate you, as long as you don't despise me for being useless? I'm afraid to see your erratic eyes again. Yanqing, I'm so afraid that my life will be out of your eyes." No. Lu Yanqing hugged him tightly and shook her head vigorously. The two of them hugged each other for a long time and did not want to separate. Yu Qianqiu looked at the two of them and smiled bitterly, especially at Wen Lanfeng. He thought to himself that this guy had finally gotten Lu Yanqing. Such a super way of chasing girls was simply shocking. Forgive me for not agreeing. In fact, most women have a natural slave nature in their subconscious. It was really true that men were not bad and women did not love them. But this Wen Lanfeng simply did not give up until he achieved his goal countless times. Which man could compare with him? Consider yourself ruthless. The two of you have been through the sea. Then live a good life in Utopia with peace of mind. After saying that, Yu Qianqiu turned into a stream of light and flew away. The others also sighed and shook their heads as they left one after another. Within Ethereal Palace, Yu Qianqiu was a little anxious. There was no other reason than that Bai Sujin had requested to head to the Blue Sea Death Trap to search for the Blue Sea Essence after learning that the Fiend Celestial had attacked Yu Qianqiu thrice. If it was in the past, Yu Qianqiu would have agreed, but Wen Lanfeng was a good example. How could he let her take the risk? No, absolutely not. Yu Qianqiu shouted at Bai Sujin in the room and immediately left. As soon as he opened the door, he found that Wu Lixue and Yin Yu were hiding at the door and eavesdropping. He immediately pointed at them and scolded, "What do you two want?" The two girls giggled and turned to leave. Yu Qianqiu couldn't do anything to them. Suddenly, he thought of something and shouted, "Shuer, where's your pheasant? How come I haven't seen her for a long time?" When Wu Lixue heard this, she immediately ran back, pulled his arm, and said with an aggrieved expression, "I never found a chance to tell you, but when we were in the Divine Ruin Realm, just a few days before the invasion of the demonic path, Little Sister Phoenix ran out to play and then disappeared. Yu Qianqiu was taken aback. That pheasant is still in the divine ruin realm. Wu, Li Shu nodded, hugged his arm, and begged. Can you go to the divine ruin realm and find her? I don't have time to find her now. Can't we talk about it later? Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly. Wu Li Shu obediently said, Oh. She also knew that it was dangerous outside. Besides, the tragedy in the divine ruin realm was still fresh in her memory. She knew that now was not the time to throw a tantrum. After a conversation, the two women looked behind him with a strange expression and left. Yu Qianqiu didn't need to look back to know who was standing behind him. He turned to the smiling Bai Sujin and said, I really can't let you take that risk. Bai Sujin smiled calmly and said, Who said I was going to take the risk? One Lanfeng is one Lanfeng. I cultivate the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra of the ancestor of all demons, Taishu Zheng. Taishu Zheng and the demon god use the essence of the blue sea to temper their bodies. I will be fine too. The reason why when Lanfeng lost his mind was because he didn't master the method. She gently held his hand and said softly, Don't worry, I will be fine. Yu Qianqiu pleaded, It's really not necessary. Even if you succeed, it will be difficult for you to be the opponent of the demon god. Just think about it. Taishu Zheng was, Who said I must fight with the demon god? I also want to improve my cultivation. Bai Sujin smiled. Yu Qianqiu knew that she didn't mean what she said. She must want to improve her cultivation as soon as possible so that she could help him. But how could he resist her repeated requests? In the end, he reluctantly agreed on the island in the central hinterland of the Blue Sea Dead realm. After Yu Qianqiu and Bai Sujin appeared, they first went to the cave in the valley. After worshipping Li Duxing's body, Yu Qianqiu sealed the cave. The two flew to the seaside according to the direction of the 10,000 Demon Heart Sutra. Unexpectedly, when they approached the seaside, they saw someone they didn't want to see. Demon King of Three Nights was standing alone on the reef by the seaside. The two were slightly shocked. Demon King of Three Nights seemed to have heard the commotion. He suddenly turned around and saw the two of them. His pupils shrank, and he said sternly, Yu Qianqiu. Almost at the same time, he flung out the scarlet cloak on his shoulder without hesitation. It turned into a blood curtain and instantly enveloped the entire island. Obviously, he wanted to cut off Yu Qianqiu's escape route and kill him. Although Demon King of Three Nights' demonic technique was amazing, he underestimated the teleportation ability of Yu Qianqiu's star bead. After Yu Qianqiu sent Bai Sujin back to Utopia, a ferocious glint appeared in his eyes. He actually wanted to fight Demon King of Three Nights. At the same time, he threw out a yellow bead. Yu Qianqiu shouted angrily, Demon King of Three Nights, today will be the day you die. The sky-splitting arrow shot out with a whoosh, exploding with boundless golden light. It was like a torrential rain of pear blossoms in the sky. An incomparably majestic aura spread out, and with a boom, the blood curtain that trapped the entire island was directly shattered by the 10,000 divine swords. Demon King of Three Nights immediately felt that something was wrong. He quickly sized up Yu Qianqiu and couldn't help but exclaim, Your cultivation has reached the minor god late stage? How is that possible? Let's see if I can kill you. Yu Qianqiu laughed sinisterly. The 10,000 divine swords that exploded the blood curtain were like a meteor shower that shot towards Demon King of Three Nights from all directions. Demonic light glimpse. A red light flashed in Demon King of Three Nights' eyes, and he passed through the sword rain at an unbelievable speed. He raised his sky demon fist and was about to strike out, but suddenly, two large hands appeared from the ground below and grabbed him, preventing him from continuing forward. Absorbing Star's great technique. Yu Qianqiu's two palms struck out at him. He wanted to see how powerful the Absorbing Star's great technique was with his current cultivation. Demon King of Three Nights immediately felt that the water in his body was rapidly depleting, and he shouted angrily, Raging Flame, Devil Aura! Black devil flames burst out and quickly enveloped his entire body, completely blocking the Absorbing Star's great technique's power. The two large hands that grabbed him were also shattered into dust by the black devil flames. Demon King of Three Nights' Sky Demon Fist smashed into the ground, and with a bang, the entire island shook. The Earth Soul mystic weapon underground was immediately shattered into dust, and there was almost no abnormality on the surface. The power was almost all concentrated on the Earth Soul mystic weapon. However, with this delay, he was immediately trapped by the tens of thousands of divine swords. In the moment of danger, Demon King of Three Nights clapped his palms and used the demonic charm doppelganger. His body turned into dozens of gray shadows, and like wisps of green smoke, he nimbly swam through the swords. The dozens of gray shadows converged in the air, and once again formed Demon King of Three Nights. He flew a bit too high, and the moment he appeared, he was forced into a fluster by a few fatal beams of light from the blue sea. Below, Yu Qianzhou's head was an arc of tens of thousands of flying swords, waiting for the enemy, ready to shoot at him at any time. Arrogant, Demon King Three Nights let out a deafening roar. It was a great humiliation for him to be forced into a fluster by someone whose cultivation was lower than his. It was not that he could not defeat Yu Qianzhou. If it were not for the fact that he was afraid of those invincible divine swords, he was confident that he could kill Yu Qianzhou in a single move. Following an angry roar, a huge fist carrying the power of thunder smashed down from the sky. It could easily turn the entire island into dust. Before the heavy fist even landed, Yu Qianzhou was already a bit unsteady from the pressure coming down from above. He finally realized that he was a bit too arrogant, and the difference between them was still very large. He gritted his teeth and yelled, 10,000 swords as one. The tens of thousands of rays of light quickly formed the heaven and earth splitting arrow. The golden light exploded against the strong wind, and the huge heaven and earth splitting arrow shot towards the fist shadow. With a bang, the fist shadow was instantly disintegrated by the sharp arrow, and the 100-meter-long heaven and earth splitting arrow was also sent spinning by the powerful force and stabbed into the sea. Rumble! The trees on the island were smashed into dust by the remaining power of the fist. Countless rocks collapsed in an instant, and Yu Qianzhou was also nailed into the ground. His waist was deeply sunk into the ground, and his head was shaken to the point of being dazed. Demon King of Three Nights quickly licked the blood that seeped out from the wound made by the divine arrow. He risked being injured to test the depth of Yu Qianzhou's strength, and discovered that it was only SOSO. He revealed a ferocious expression and was about to fight again when his gaze suddenly caught sight of a person with a dull expression on the blue sea surface. It was Yin Zhuixing, who had once again used the blue sea essence to refine his body. Yu Qianzhou shook his dazed head, and his expression froze. He also discovered Yin Zhuixing, and his eyes immediately lit up. He immediately jumped out of the ground and yelled, "Kill him!" The Earth Soul profound weapon that was condensed underground broke out of the ground and directly pounced at Yin Zhuixing. Demon King of Three Nights was greatly alarmed. He didn't think that Yu Qianzhou would have a helper. He teleported over to rescue him, and the heaven and earth splitting arrow that was stabbed into the sea suddenly turned into tens of thousands of golden rays that shot out like a torrential rain. Chapter 1205. Three Nights had already risked injury to test out Yu Qianzhou's depth. At this critical moment, he ignored the 10,000 divine swords. In order to save the muddle-headed Yin Zhuixing, he threw caution to the wind and slapped the Earth Soul profound weapon that was attacking Yin Zhuixing with a shocking palm. As for the Earth and Soul profound soldier, it did not know what danger was. After receiving Yu Qianzhou's instructions, it also threw caution to the wind and did not care about anything else. It allowed Demon King Three Nights' palm strike to come at it with a force that could topple a mountain. It was willing to sacrifice its body to take Yin Zhuixing's life. In the end, with a hong sound, it was really smashed into pieces by Demon King Three Nights' palm strike. A yellow bead fell into the sea. The 10,000 divine swords had already arrived. Demon Monarch 3 Knight had killed the Earth Soul Profound Soldier with a single palm strike. While still in the air, he flipped his body and swept his palm across the surface of the sea. Instantly, a huge wave surged towards the 10,000 divine swords that were shooting over. A huge wave instantly knocked the divine swords flying over. Yu Qianshou and Yin Jueixing were both people who would kill each other the moment they saw each other. How could they let 3 knights save them so easily? Demon Monarch 3 Knights was just about to open his claw and pull Yin Jueixing away from the surface of the sea when suddenly, the huge wave created by his palm was pushed back by Yu Qianshou using all of his cultivation to use the water art. 10,000 golden lights pierced through the blue wave and attacked again. At the same time, Yu Qianshou shot out like a shooting star from the whirlpool that had suddenly formed in the green wave. In that instant, he ignited the little remaining true samadhi fire in his body and casually grabbed a divine sword beside him. As he raised the sword and slashed, the divine sword suddenly became a huge sword that was 100 meters long. The true samadhi fire covered the sword, and he slashed at Demon King 3 Knights. Yu Qianshou threw caution to the wind and fought with all his might. However, Demon King 3 Knights was not someone to be trifled with. With a wave of his hand, the raging inferno devil aura that covered his entire body rushed out like a black whirlwind, directly blocking the godly sword that was slashing down. The black whirlwind sucked in the godly sword, and Demon King 3 Knights casually swung it. Yu Qianshou's cultivation was inferior to his, so the godly sword was directly pulled out of his hand. Under the corrosion of the true samadhi fire, the raging flames devil aura was already quickly dispersing. However, Demon King 3 Knight did not give up on the opportunity to use it. His arm that was controlling the raging flames devil aura spun rapidly, turning the godly sword that he had snatched into a fan. Yu Qianshou grabbed Yin Jueixing's hair and directly flew out of the sea. He stood on a huge piece of ice floating on the surface of the sea. Demon King 3 Knights also flew out of the sea and landed on a piece of ice less than 10 meters away from Yu Qianshou. However, with the sword on Yin Jueixing's neck and the true samadhi fire covering his body, Demon King 3 Knights completely cut off any thoughts of rescuing him. Yu Qianshou, as long as you let him go, we can discuss any conditions. Demon King 3 Knights stared at Yu Qianshou in embarrassment and anger. The disdainful aura on his face had already disappeared. He had nowhere to vent his anger. Never in his dreams did he expect Yu Qianshou to capture Yin Jueixing right under his nose. This was a huge humiliation to him. However, he had to admit that he had indeed underestimated Yu Qianshou today. He had never formally fought against Yu Qianshou before. He had never expected that when they actually fought, Yu Qianshou would actually hide his abilities and catch him off guard time and time again. He had already come to a conclusion in his heart. If he didn't get rid of Yu Qianshou soon, once his cultivation increased, Yu Qianshou would become a great threat to him. So the famous Demon King 3 Knights is only SOSO. Yu Qianshou stared at Demon King 3 Knights, who was afraid of harming Yin Jueixing, with a mocking expression. He then looked at Yin Jueixing, who was in his hands, and suddenly couldn't help but laugh wildly. A few fatal beams of light shot out from under his feet, but he didn't dodge at all. He continued to stand on the floating ice and laugh wildly, causing the floating ice around him to tremble. Demon King 3 Knights' facial muscles twitched violently. Such mockery was like a slap to his face. How many years had it been? When had he ever been treated like this? Right now, he wanted nothing more than to rush up and smash Yu Qianshou into smithereens. However, the chips were in his opponent's hands, so it was no longer up to him. From the start of the fierce battle, it seemed like it took a long time, but in reality, it happened very quickly. It only took a few sips of tea, but every step was frightening. Victory or defeat was decided by a single thought. Yu Qianqiu didn't win because of his cultivation, but because he won by surprise, catching Demon King 3 Knights off guard. However, to dare to face the Demon Lord 3 Knights head-on like this, no matter who saw it, they would have to praise his courage and strategy without any words to describe it. At this moment, the demon blade flashed out of the sea, floating in the air not far away, waiting for an opportunity to swim. It was indeed a divine weapon full of spiritual energy. It actually knew that its master had fallen into someone else's hands, so it didn't dare to act rashly. And Yu Qianqiu, who was laughing so hard that he was almost out of breath, also stopped laughing. He summoned back the 10,000 divine swords to protect himself, then grabbed Yan Zhuixing's head and twisted it around. He sneered and said, "Yan Zhuixing, you and I have fought for so many years. So what if you have the entire demonic path protecting you? So what if you have the demon god protecting you? In the end, you still fell into this old man's hands." Demon King 3 Knights immediately became nervous. If something happened to Yan Zhuixing, he wouldn't be able to answer to the demon god. He waved his hand and shouted again, "Yu Qianqiu, don't be rash. We could discuss any condition." "We can really discuss any condition?" Yu Qianqiu's gaze turned cold as he suddenly tilted his head. Of course, Demon King 3 Knights was afraid that he would act rashly, so he comforted him. "I believe you know the strength of my demonic path. As long as you let him go, my demonic path can help you unify the 3 realms and let you ascend to the throne of the 3 realms supreme ruler. If you don't feel at ease, the heroes of my demonic path can return to the demon world and be sealed there by you. What do you think?" "Bullshit. Don't give me that. You killed so many of my subordinates, and now you're talking to me about this." Yu Qianqiu cursed. He pointed his divine sword at Demon King 3 Knights and said sternly, "Didn't you say we can discuss any condition? Fine. I, your father, want to exchange a life for a life. As long as you, San Yi, commit suicide in front of me, your father's words are as solid as a nail. After you die, I will definitely let him live. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance to negotiate. Do you dare to agree?" "Yu Qianqiu, don't go too far," Demon King 3 Knights said with a gloomy expression. How could he believe such nonsense? If he died, Yan Zhuixing would have no chance of survival. "Then what do you want me to discuss with you?" Yu Qianqiu waved his divine sword, and Yan Zhuixing's arm fell onto the ice with a spurt of blood. He asked sternly again, "Commit suicide." "You." Demon King 3 Knights was enraged. He suddenly raised his head to look at the sky with a bewildered expression. Yu Qianqiu thought he was up to something, but he suddenly felt an ancient and terrifying aura descend from the sky. This wasn't the first time he had come into contact with such a terrifying aura. 2 words immediately appeared in his mind. Demon God. Yu Qianqiu's heart trembled, and he also abruptly raised his head to look up, only to see that in the sky, a pair of dreamlike, gigantic demonic eyes had appeared in the distant space-time, looking down coldly and emotionlessly, as if all living beings in the world were ants in his eyes. F***CK. This bastard is here again. Yu Qianqiu instantly hesitated. Under the gaze of this pair of devil eyes, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know if he should kill Yan Zhuixing or not. If he angered the number 1 expert in the divine world, and he wanted to take revenge, it would be impossible for him to hide. It could be said that there was no way out. Even if he hid in Utopia, Yan Zhuixing could directly tear through the void and arrive in an instant. He could destroy him with a single finger. But at this moment, something strange happened. The floating demon blade that was waiting for an opportunity suddenly turned into a stream of light and shot into the sky. In between the eyebrows of the giant demon eye in the sky, a crack suddenly appeared, and the demon blade directly entered the crack in the void. Following that, the giant demon eye glanced coldly at Yu Qianqiu and disappeared without a trace. The terrifying aura also disappeared. Chapter 1206. What was the meaning of this? Yu Qianqiu and Demon Lord Three Knights had the same question in their minds. The two of them waited there silently for a while. After there was no movement in the air for a while, the two of them gradually came to a realization. The demonic god had taken back the demonic blade he had bestowed to Yan Zhuixing. The two of them were intelligent people. It was not hard to guess the demonic god's intentions. He had clearly given up on protecting Yan Zhuixing. Yu Qianqiu looked at Yan Zhuixing, who had landed in his hands, and his expression twitched. A fierce look flashed in Demon Lord Three Knights' eyes. Just as he moved down from the air, Yu Qianqiu ran faster than a rabbit, disappearing with his belongings. Demon Lord Three Knights' lungs nearly exploded from anger. He immediately roared at the sky, but before he could vent his anger, he was interrupted by a few fatal beams of light. In the courtyard of Ethereal Palace, Bai Sujin, who had been sent back in advance, was extremely anxious. Hong Tai Long and the rest asked about the situation and found out that Yu Qianqiu and Demon Lord Three Knights had clashed. They were also extremely worried. Just as everyone was at a loss, Yu Qianqiu suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Everyone took a closer look and found out that he was fine. They immediately heaved a sigh of relief. When they saw the person he had captured, they were all pleasantly surprised. After Hong Tai Long found out what was going on, he laughed out loud on the spot and said, "Great, you actually managed to capture this guy right under Demon Lord Three Knights' nose. Demon Lord Three Knights will definitely be angered to death. Impressive, truly impressive. How are you going to deal with this guy?" He pointed at Yan Zhuixing. "I heard that there's a cycle of karma. I don't want to make another mortal enemy in my next life and let this bastard have it easy." Yu Qianqiu stared at Yan Zhuixing and said with a sneer, "Yan Zhuixing, from today onwards, the grudge between us shall be written off." Just as he said that, the true samadhi fire that enveloped Yan Zhuixing immediately burned fiercely. In just a moment, Yan Zhuixing's body and soul were burned to ashes. Even his hope of reincarnation was completely extinguished. Yan Zhuixing died in a daze and didn't even know how he died. This was probably the best ending for him. Many people present knew that Yan Zhuixing was Yu Qianqiu's mortal enemy. Seeing Yu Qianqiu kill his enemy, everyone was happy for him. However, Yu Qianqiu, who should have been the happiest, didn't look happy at all. After seeing Yan Zhuixing turn into ashes, he, who had retracted his samadhi true fire, had a cold expression. He knew that if the God Fiend had not given up on protecting Yan Zhuixing, he would not have been able to do anything to Yan Zhuixing. That was not the most important thing. In fact, he had already offended the devil god. He did not know if that madman would take revenge on him. Just thinking about it made his scalp tingle. Everyone saw that he didn't look too good and didn't know what was wrong. Yu Qianqiu let out a breath and walked to Bai Sujin's side. He smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know how the situation in the Blue Sea Death Trap is now. I'm afraid you'll have to postpone your matter for the time being." Bai Sujin didn't force it and nodded in understanding. Yu Qianqiu turned to look at Hong Tai Long and said, "Bring Shun Yu along." When Hong Tai Long heard this, he immediately knew where Yu Qianqiu wanted to go. He left excitedly. Not long after, he dragged the innocent-looking Shun Yu out of the Ethereal Palace. Yu Qianqiu exchanged greetings with everyone. With a wave of his hand, the three of them disappeared before everyone's eyes. After crossing the ice-cold Netherworld River and stepping into the All-Heavens boundary, Shun Yu was sent back to Utopia. Looking at the gigantic moon in the sky, the two of them discussed for a while and immediately flew along the Hungduan mountain range at the edge of the All-Heavens boundary. They wanted to see if Bai Changchun was still cultivating at the same place. When they arrived there, they met the three tomb keepers who had been waiting for Bai Changchun back then. When the three of them saw Hong Tai Long, they greeted him respectfully. Hong Tai Long asked if Bai Changchun had come out yet, and the three of them asked curiously, saying that Bai Changchun had not come out even once. Furthermore, there had been some strange phenomena, causing them to be very worried. When Yu Qianqiu heard that, he looked into the All-Heavens boundary and was also shocked. He saw four Bai Changchun floating in the darkness. Their eyes were closed and their ears were covered. They floated there motionlessly. The four serene Bai Changchun looked exactly the same. There were golden arcs of light constantly surging in and out of their bodies. They appeared very mysterious and magical in the darkness. How can this be? Yu Qianqiu said in shock. This. Hong Tailong was also shocked. He said with a dumbfounded expression, could he have cultivated to the external embodiment realm? That's right. This is also what we are worried about. One of the tomb guards pointed at the four by Changchun in the darkness and said, at first there were only two, then one after another, until now there are four. If it is really the legendary external embodiment realm, then his cultivation progress is too terrifying. At this speed, I'm afraid it won't take too long for him to cultivate to the realm of 10 embodiments. If he cultivates to the legendary realm of transforming into 10 suns in one rage, it will be too terrifying. At that time, who in the mausoleum of the god of sin can stop him? Another tomb guard shook his head and muttered, maybe it's just an illusion. How can a person's cultivation progress be so fast? What is the external embodiment realm? Yu Qianqiu asked in confusion. He had heard about the realm of transforming into 10 suns in one rage from the great god Yi, but he really didn't know what was going on. When the three people heard him ask such a question, they couldn't help but look him up and down in confusion, as if wondering why he had never heard of this before. Hong Tailong looked at Bai Changchun in the darkness and swallowed his saliva. Then, he smiled bitterly to Yu Qianqiu and said, the most obvious characteristic of reaching the ancient god realm is to cultivate each of the 3 souls and 7 spirits in the body to the same level as the cultivator, so that they can be summoned to help at any time during a battle. Early stage ancient god realm can have 3 incarnations. Middle stage ancient god realm can have 6 incarnations, and late stage ancient god realm can have 9 incarnations. Once one cultivates to the realm of 10 incarnations, that is the realm of great perfection. I don't know what cultivation should be called. As for the realm of transforming into 10 suns in one rage, it's even more beyond our imagination. According to the legends, only the war god and Yishun fought each other. I haven't seen it, so I can't describe it. Yu Qianqiu was instantly speechless. He looked at the 4 by Changchun with a dull expression, and his heart was fiercely shocked. Originally, he thought that the speed of his cultivation was fast enough, and he was prepared to show off to Old Man Bai. Who would have thought that the old man was even more terrifying and had actually reached the realm of external embodiment realm? Then, wouldn't his cultivation have already stepped into the ancient god realm? Others might not understand Bai Changchun, but how could he not? He knew that Bai Changchun wouldn't create the so-called illusion as a gimmick, and it might be real. Damn it, this old man's cultivation speed is even more monstrous than monstrous geniuses. He's simply a super monstrous genius. Yu Qianqiu cursed inwardly. He realized that he really couldn't compare himself with this person, otherwise he would really be infuriated. He forcefully seized someone else's cultivation and fused it for his own use. His cultivation speed was already fast enough, but compared to the old man's rapid cultivation speed, it really paled in comparison. Yu Qianqiu, is your master joking, or is he serious? Don't scare me. Hong Tailong's voice sounded in his ears. It should be fake. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and replied secretly, forget it. Let's go about our business. Hong Tailong immediately coughed and pretended to remind the 3 of them to continue to keep a close watch on Bai Changchun. After that, he flew away with Yu Qianqiu. After they were far away from the 3's line of sight, Hong Tailong began to ask seriously, what are you going to do? With our cultivation, if we forcefully do it, it will be very difficult for us to succeed if we encounter a tough opponent. Moreover, once we alert the enemy, it will be troublesome to do it again in the future. I've already thought of a way before I came. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here so easily. Yu Qianqiu looked around, and after confirming that there was no one around, he transmitted his voice, I see that your identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy is quite useful. How about this? We split up. Once we find a target, you should be able to use your identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy to deceive the tomb guards. After you deceive them, You should be able to use your identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy to deceive the tomb guards. After you deceive them, you can immediately transmit a message to me, and I will rob the tomb at the fastest speed possible. This way, no one will know. Hong Tailong turned pale with fright. How can we do that? Once this matter spreads out, where will our Dragon Clan put our face? This matter will incur the wrath of the masses in the immortal realm. If the old ancestor finds out, he will definitely not forgive me. Damn it, what are you shouting for? Are you afraid that others won't know? Yu Qinshu punched him, and Hong Tailong knew that he had misspoken. He immediately fell silent and looked around vigilantly. Yu Qinshu moved closer and transmitted his voice in a low voice. You are usually a quick-witted dragon. Why are you acting like a fool now? If we rob the tomb openly, won't your identity as a Dragon Clan member be exposed? Furthermore, it will be exposed even faster. Listen to me. You just have to be careful and lure them away. With the miraculous effects of my earth art, we can secretly rob the tomb. Who will be able to tell? Actually, this is the safest method. Even if someone finds out that the tomb is empty in the future, who would dare to frame the Dragon Clan without any evidence? Besides, even if old ancestor Coiling Dragon finds out, don't you still have me? What are you afraid of? This? Hong Tailong asked doubtfully. Are you serious? If the old ancestor really finds out, don't go back on your word. Damn you. Yu Qinshu, mean what I say. Before Yu Qinshu could finish speaking, Hong Tailong immediately came to his senses. He felt like he had almost fallen into a trap. He waved his hands in horror and said, Don't even think about it. I won't do it even if you beat me to death. Yu Qinshu immediately realized that there was a problem with the way he spoke. The words mean what I say means what I say should not be repeated multiple times in front of the same person. This was the golden rule. Hence, his face instantly darkened. He grabbed Hong Tailong and said, I say, are you stupid? Why didn't you think about it? Old ancestor Coiling Dragon is not picky with so many people. Why did he choose you to carry out this mission? Isn't it because you were flexible? Besides, I came to rob the tomb this time to refine a few more Earth Soul mystic weapons and settle the score with Mu Yuanzi. Don't forget, if it wasn't for Mu Yuanzi secretly instructing Jin Tai to obtain the soul transforming smoke, your old friend Yi Tiankong wouldn't have died to the soul transforming smoke, and you wouldn't have been trapped for 100,000 years. This is also revenge for you. Don't take my kindness for granted. Are you doing it or not? Chapter 1207. Goading Hong Tailong, who had done many bad things in the past, had no effect on him. However, when it came to revenge, Hong Tailong's expression turned ugly. After all, being trapped for 100,000 years wasn't a good memory. Indeed, we can't let that old thing get away with it. How many tragedies in the three realms are caused by that old thing hiding behind scenes? Why do we have to live and die while he enjoys his life as if nothing happened? Hong Tailong gritted his teeth and said hatefully, This old dragon will make him pay no matter what. This was equivalent to a promise. Yu Qinshu patted his shoulder with great relief and said, That's right. You're not a gentleman if you don't take revenge. This is how Hong Tailong should be. Hong Tailong rolled his eyes and said snappily, Don't be sarcastic. After taking care of that old thing, you're still the one who benefits the most. You can't say that. Yu Qinshu said sternly. Do you think it's easy for me to fight with my life on the line? At the end of the day, I'm still selling my life for your dragon race. Do you think I like living a life of licking blood on the edge of a knife? If I don't improve my cultivation, how can I fulfill the mission of your dragon race's old ancestor Coiling Dragon to administer punishment on behalf of heaven? Seeing that he brought up the matter of administering punishment on behalf of heaven, Hong Tailong had nothing else to say. The two discussed the details together and left one after the other. Under the bright moonlight, the two looked at each other from afar. They wandered around the mausoleum of the god of divinity like wandering gods at night, looking for a suitable target. After half a day, Hong Tailong suddenly landed from the sky. Yu Qinshu's eyes lit up, and he quickly landed to hide his tracks. He hid behind a rock and observed with his eyes, waiting for news from the front. Not long after, he saw two streams of light flying away in the distance. Hong Tailong's voice transmission followed. This is the tomb of the virtuous heavenly monarch. He also has the cultivation of a late-stage great god. You better be quick. If I take too long, I'll arouse suspicion. Got it. Yu Qinshu leapt out from the rock and flew close to the ground under the cover of the terrain. When he saw the blood jade, red crystal tomb, he immediately drilled into the ground and used the earth escape technique to enter the tomb. The situation in the grave was exactly the same as that in Honghua Star-Lord's grave. A man was lying on the blood jade crystal bed as if he was asleep. Strands of red light seeped through the blood jade red crystals on the dome and concentrated on the body. Although the scene looked strange, it was not the first time that Yu Qinshu had encountered it. He was already immune to it. Yu Qinshu couldn't tell if the other party's cultivation was really at the late-stage great god. He took a closer look and imitated Hong Tailong's method. He touched the corpse of the virtuous heavenly monarch with both hands and used his divine sense to check at close range. As a result, he found that the cultivation of the virtuous heavenly monarch was only at the mid-stage great god. It was the same as Honghua Star-Lord. This caused Yu Qinshu, who had repeatedly touched the corpse to examine it, to fall into deep thought. He reckoned that after a person died in battle, their cultivation base would be somewhat damaged. It was impossible for their cultivation base to remain intact like it was when they were healthy. He didn't dare to waste too much time. He clawed at the corpse with his 5 claws. A thin yellow earth armor wrapped the corpse of the virtuous heavenly monarch. It gradually shrank as it squirmed. After a while, the fused earth ball exploded, and a yellow bead fell into his hand. After getting his hands on the item, Yu Qinshu immediately drilled out of the bright red tomb space. After escaping through the earth, he transmitted his voice to Hong Tailong. I got it. I'll wait for you at the front. The process could be said to be extremely smooth. Not long after, Hong Tailong flashed over. He couldn't wait to inspect his spoils of war. Yu Qinshu waved the earth soul in his hand proudly and said, It's done. I told you it's very safe this way. Hong Tailong snatched the earth's soul and weighed it in his hand. He nodded repeatedly while clicking his tongue. However, Yu Qinshu couldn't help but ask curiously, What reason did you use to lure the tomb guardian away? I used the excuse of inquiring about your master's background. I didn't expect that the other party would really hate your master so much. He could be said to be very cooperative. Hong Tailong returned the earth's soul to him disapprovingly. Yu Qinshu was stunned. After thinking about it, he didn't think much of it. This was indeed a good reason. Hong Tailong seemed to be very addicted to doing this kind of thing. He rubbed his hands excitedly and said, I also asked him about the nearby situation. There are still a few tombs nearby. Let's hurry. Yu Qinshu naturally didn't have any objections. The two of them immediately acted according to the old rules and quickly left one after the other. The two of them busied themselves nonstop for a month. Hong Tailong's identity as the Dragon Clan's emissary was very useful. There was basically no trouble at all. At most, some people didn't treat their guests very warmly. However, they were still quite cooperative. The two of them spent most of their time running around on the road. If they continued like this, the news of the Dragon Clan's emissary arriving at the mausoleum of the God's Mausoleum would probably spread everywhere. However, Yu Qinshu never showed his face. This made Hong Tailong very depressed. He was more or less worried that things would get out of hand if things got out of hand. However, Yu Qinshu took out a pile of spoils of war and told him that since they had already done it, there was no point in stopping now. Since that was the case, they should just continue. After checking the spoils of war, there were 80 earth souls, 10 fire souls, and 10 gold souls. There were 16 late-stage Great God Realm, 30 mid-stage Great God Realm, and 54 early-stage Great God Realm. The 16 late-stage Great God Realm Earth Soul Bandits were all early-stage Ancient God Realm tombs. Unfortunately, their cultivation was not completely preserved after they died, and all of them had dropped by 1 level. As for the minor god realm tombs, the two of them had no interest in wasting time. In any case, there were still many great tombs waiting for them. Moreover, it wouldn't be worth it if they failed miserably for the sake of minor god realm tombs. In a month's time, they had raided exactly 100 tombs. Hong Tai-Long held a large pile of weapon souls in his hands and said cheerfully, "With so many helpers, I reckon there shouldn't be a problem sweeping through the three realms. Should we go and settle the score with Mu Yuanzi now? We have a strong army and strong horses." Yu Qianqiu sighed ruefully as he put away the weapon souls in his hands. After pondering for a while, he said, "I don't have enough true samadhi fire. This thing will probably have a great restraining effect on Mu Yuanzi. To be on the safe side, I'll have to refine some true samadhi fire first, just in case." Hong Tai-Long didn't have any objections. The two of them made a sign that the tomb raiding mission was temporarily suspended. They were prepared to continue the next time they came here, so that they wouldn't have to waste time. After that, the two of them disappeared from the mausoleum of the god of sin. Their first stop was the human world that was sealed. They went to the underground, where Hong Tai-Long was trapped, and collected enough green fire. After that, they directly rushed to the fairy realm and openly killed their way to the other human world. This was something that couldn't be helped. The passageway to the netherworld in the demon realm had already disappeared, and even the netherworld flames were nowhere to be seen. If they wanted to collect black fire, they could only go to the other human realm. As a result, Demon King 3 knights chased after them. However, by the time he arrived, Yu Qianqiu had already absorbed all the black fire and left first. It wasn't that Yu Qianqiu wanted to avoid him, nor was it because he was afraid of him. Now that Yu Qianqiu had over 100 divine grade mystic weapons in his hands, there was no need for him to be afraid of him. Instead, he was eager to devour Mu Yuanzi to raise his cultivation. As for Demon King 3 knights, he was prepared to turn around and eliminate him along with the Devil Dao. After collecting enough blue fire and black light, he used the fire art to absorb a large amount of purple fire from the immortal realm. In Utopia's military camp, Yu Qianqiu, who had refined enough true samadhi fire, waved his hand and pointed to the distant horizon in high spirits. "Let's go. We'll settle the score with Mu Yuanzi first. Bastard, it's time to take revenge for the millions of cultivators in the human realm. Let's go." Hong Tai-Long rubbed his palms together and agreed loudly. The two of them disappeared from Utopia. When they reappeared, they were in an ancient forest not far from the ancient language tree. Hong Tai-Long looked around and said with a little surprise, "This seems to be an ancient forest. Didn't you say that you could directly teleport to Mu Yuanzi's Wood Killer Sea? Why did you come here?" Yu Qianqiu's gaze landed on the golden ancient language tree. In his mind, he thought of the adorable Lu heir in the Wood Killer Sea. He shook his head and sighed. "Unless it's absolutely necessary, I really don't want to kill her grandfather in front of her." "Then who is she?" Hong Tai-Long asked doubtfully. His intuition told him that it was definitely a woman. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to linger on this topic. He observed the surrounding terrain for a while, then released 10 gold souls and 10 earth souls, sinking them into the hard red rocks in pairs. The two types of soldier souls couldn't be used in the rocks alone and could only be used together. Among the gold souls, there were 2 late-stage great gods. He then flashed to the cliff and scattered 20 earth souls into the soil to set up an ambush. He then flew to the forest in all directions and took out the remaining 50 earth souls, setting them up in the surroundings to set up an ambush, forming a huge encirclement. As for the fire soul mystic weapons, there were no conditions for them to be used here. However, there were already 2 late-stage great gods with samadhi true fire mystic weapons on standby in Utopia. Fang Xingjian summoned them as well. Using both the gold arts and earth arts, he got the 2 fire soul mystic weapons to set up an ambush under the red rocks not far away from the ancient language tree. An ambush set up by 92 divine level experts. Hong Tai-Long rubbed his hands together excitedly and cackled. "Let's see where Mu Yuanzi can escape to. There should be 93 of them." Yu Qianqiu pointed at him then pointed at the flowing river and said, "Hide in the water and wait for an opportunity." Ugh! Hong Tailong was stunned for a moment and said, "Isn't this making a mountain out of a molehill?" Although he said this, he still turned and walked to the river. He jumped in and hid at the bottom of the quietly flowing river. With everything prepared, Yu Qianqiu squeezed the heaven-splitting arrow in his sleeves and let out a cold laugh. Mu Yuanzi. Today you, the local tyrant who has been hiding behind the three realms, has met your end. Fang Xingjian then walked up to the ancient language tree. Following the method Jintai had told him to contact Mu Yuanzi for 3 nights, he slapped down on the ancient language tree. Dull thumping sounds rang out, and the entire ancient language tree started to tremble intensely. Even the ground trembled slightly. Hong Tailong, who was hiding in the river, could not help but extend his head out to take a peek. In the end, he discovered that Yu Qianqiu was looking in his direction and even glared at him fiercely. Hong Tailong smiled awkwardly and sank back into the water. Chapter 12:08. Thump, thump. Yu Qianqiu stood under the tree with an indifferent expression as he continued to strike the ancient tree with palm after palm. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and the golden leaves, which looked like countless golden flowers, let out a strange ing-ing sound. The ancient language tree in the ancient forest was the same as the ancient language tree in the Wood Killer Sea. The phenomenon here immediately caused a chain reaction in the other world. The ancient language tree on the hill in the Wood Killer Sea also let out a strange, mournful wail. In the ancient tree house at the center of the Wood Monster Sea Plains, Lu was quietly cultivating. Mu Yuanzi's ears twitched slightly as he sat opposite her with his eyes closed. He frowned and slowly opened his eyes. Gently picking up the wooden staff beside him, he disappeared from the treehouse. He quickly landed under the ancient language tree on the hillside. Looking at the ancient language tree trembling violently in the wind, he couldn't help but let out a cold snort. He pointed the wooden staff in his hand at the ancient language tree, and green ripples immediately appeared on the thick trunk. A window opened, peeking at the outside world. When he saw that it was Yu Qianqiu standing there and hitting the tree trunk, he couldn't help but be stunned. At first, he thought it was Demon King 3 Knights who had come to disturb him, but he didn't expect it to be Yu Qianqiu. What puzzled him was how Yu Qianqiu knew how to contact him through the ancient language tree. "You still dare to cause trouble here." Mu Yuanzi let out a cold shout and angrily waved the wooden staff in his hand. The windows on the ancient language tree disappeared, and a wall of light appeared. He stepped out. When Yu Qianqiu saw the mercury-like light wall appear, he stopped attacking the ancient language tree and stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked at the furious Mu Yuanzi walking out of nowhere. "Yu Qianqiu, do you really think I don't dare to kill?" Mu Yuanzi slammed the wooden staff into the ground, and the wall of light behind him disappeared. Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, "Of course you dare, but it depends on the person. For example, if the Demon King 3 Knights were here, you wouldn't dare to kill anyone." Mu Yuanzi was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Yu Qianqiu to be so calm when he saw him. He quickly looked around, and when he discovered that Yu Qianqiu's cultivation had actually reached the late minor god stage, he was shocked. He couldn't imagine how his cultivation had risen so quickly. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and said, "I was wondering why you had the guts to speak to me like this. It turns out that your cultivation has improved and you have something to rely on. However, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. There's still quite a gap between your early-stage minor god cultivation base and mine. It's not up to you to act presumptuously in front of me. I'm not being presumptuous. I'm just here to get even with you," Yu Qianqiu said calmly. Seeing his confident expression, Mu Yuanzi couldn't help but laugh and say, "You want to settle accounts with me? Then I'm all ears. How are you going to get even with me?" "There's something I want to ask you." Yu Qianqiu extended a finger. "I just want to ask you one thing. Were you the one who told the Demon King 3 Knights the method to open the realm of the divine ruin? Mu Yuanzi looked at his pretentious appearance and sneered. So what if I was? As long as you admit it. Yu Qianshou took a deep breath. Then I'll tell you. Because of what you've done, over 1 million of my cultivators in the realm of the divine ruins were slaughtered by the Demon King 3 nights. Over 1 million lives. How can I let you go? Mu Yuanzi was startled. Although he was the one who told 3 Knights the method to open the realm of the divine ruin, he really didn't know that 3 Knights had killed so many people. He furrowed his brows and said in a gentler tone, So what? I wasn't the one who killed them. You should be getting even with the Demon King 3 Knights. Do you think that just because you're no match for 3 Knights, you can be my match? What a huge joke. Looks like it'll be very difficult for you to admit your mistake. No matter, it's your fault, so you can't run. Yu Qianshou suddenly sneered. As for 3 Knights, you don't need to worry about him. After I've taken care of you, I'll go take care of him next. Moreover, I'll completely eradicate the entire Demon Dao. Such big words. Mu Yuanzi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. He seemed to be mocking Yu Qianshou for overestimating himself. However, halfway through his laughter, his face stiffened. He teleported into the air and saw a pair of steel claws suddenly emerge from the ground where he was just standing, almost grabbing onto his feet. Fortunately, he was quite experienced in taking root in the ground as a wood spirit and sensed that something was wrong ahead of time. Seeing that his sneak attack was ineffective, Yu Qianshou couldn't help but feel a bit of pity. He realized that this old fellow really did have some tricks up his sleeve. He was actually able to escape the sneak attack of a late-stage Great God Golden Soul Profound Soldier. With a wave of his hand, the 10 Golden Soul Profound Soldiers, 10 Earth Soul Profound Soldiers, and 2 Fire Soul Profound Soldiers that were hiding in the red rocks emerged and stood majestically beside him. True Samadhi fire. Mu Yuanzi cried out involuntarily. His pupils abruptly shrank as he looked at the 2 Fire Soul Profound Soldiers. He then swept his gaze over the other monsters. He could be considered a knowledgeable person, but this was the first time he had seen this kind of monster. When he discovered that these monsters all had high cultivation, he immediately understood why Yu Qianshou was so confident. He then shouted sternly, You really have something to rely on. No wonder you dare to come find trouble with this old man. However, I'm afraid your wishful thinking will fail. This old man can return to Wood Massacre C at any time. Yu Qianshou, can't do anything to me. Mu Yuanzi, I advise you not to bring the flames of war to Wood Massacre C unless you want Lu to see you die with her own eyes. Yu Qianshou slowly walked out from under the ancient language tree and said in a low voice, Up until now, as long as I've been to a place, no one can stop me from going a second time. I can enter and exit the sealed divine ruin realm as I please. I can do the same for your Wood Massacre C. If you don't believe me, you can try. Obediently surrender, and I'll give you a quick death. After saying that, he waved his hand again. 70 Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers suddenly emerged from the bottom of the cliff and the surrounding forest. They flew into the air and surrounded Mu Yuanzi. Hong Tai Long, who was hiding in the river, also jumped out. He pointed at Mu Yuanzi in the air and cursed. Old thing, you also have a day like this. Today, this old dragon will settle the debt of the soul, transforming smoke 100,000 years ago with you. Mu Yuanzi didn't have the mood to reply to him. He was looking around as if he was facing a great enemy. The shock in his heart was indescribable. He couldn't imagine where Yu Qianshou had gotten so many experts and monsters. The situation was clear at a glance. It was impossible for him to be a match for so many experts and monsters. If he fought, he would definitely die. Suddenly, Mu Yuanzi waved the wooden staff in his hand. A wall of light appeared. He didn't believe that Yu Qianshou could enter and exit Wood Massacre C as he pleased. Therefore, the wisest choice was to hide in Wood Massacre C. However, how could Yu Qianshou let him escape so easily? A thought flashed in his mind, stop him. Even though the wall of light could be activated quickly, it would still take some time. For the profound soldiers with profound cultivation, it was more than enough to stop him. A late-stage, great god fire soul mystic soldier teleported over. The huge body of Samadhi True fire directly blocked the wall of light. It waved its 5 claws and clawed at Mu Yuanzi. Mu Yuanzi quickly teleported away. However, the profound soldiers surrounded him from all directions and completely cut off his escape route. They all launched attacks at him. The wall of light, which was only half activated, instantly disintegrated after losing the support of his magic power. Mu Yuanzi's expression changed drastically. He knew that he wouldn't be able to escape today. However, he wouldn't allow himself to be captured without a fight. The wooden staff in his hand suddenly exploded into countless wooden vines that were like spiritual snakes. In an instant, the sky was filled with its spiritual aura. The wooden vines instantly entangled all the profound soldiers. Taking advantage of the momentary gap, Mu Yuanzi's gaze suddenly locked onto Yu Qianqiu. He decided to capture the leader first. As long as he captured Yu Qianqiu, all the threats would be easily resolved. With a swoosh, he teleported out of the encirclement of the profound soldiers. This was an opportunity that he had obtained at the cost of losing the wooden staff. Yu Qianqiu's eyes narrowed. The moment he met the other party's gaze, he guessed the other party's scheme. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had long prepared to defend himself. Tens of thousands of golden lights exploded from his sleeves and shot out like thunder. They directly forced Mu Yuanzi, who had teleported over, to reveal himself. Mu Yuanzi, who was pale with fright, was instantly pierced by several divine swords. He didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu would have such a divine weapon in his hands that could easily break through his defenses. At the same time, dozens of explosions rang out behind him. The profound soldiers directly used brute force to detonate the wooden vines that were entangling them. The Fire Soul Mystic Soldier completely disregarded the wooden vines and took the initiative to burn through the layers of obstacles before chasing after Mu Yuanzi. The remaining tens of thousands of divine swords rapidly formed a sword net and instantly charged forward. The divine swords that were stuck in Mu Yuanzi's body expanded and instantly sliced Mu Yuanzi into several pieces. However, Mu Yuanzi's body was like flowing water. The moment his body was cut open, it rapidly fused back together. Seeing that there were incomparably sharp divine weapons obstructing him and power soldiers chasing behind him, Mu Yuanzi quickly teleported to the ground. Like the deep roots of an old tree, he directly pierced a hole in the hard rocky ground and disappeared into the ground like a wisp of green smoke. The 2 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers that had caught up to him at almost the same time spat out a fire dragon and chased into the ground. Ah! Mu Yuanzi screamed miserably underground. 10 Gold Soul Mystic Soldiers and Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers quickly tunneled into the ground in pursuit. Boom! A dozen holes were blasted open on the side of the transverse cliff. The 10 squads of profound soldiers forced the fleeing Mu Yuanzi out of the cliff in the blink of an eye. Mu Yuanzi's figure once again entered the dense forest below the cliff. The Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers and Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers on the cliff immediately gave chase. The moment Mu Yuanzi entered the dense forest, he displayed his might. After all, this ancient forest was his territory, and he definitely had the home ground advantage. In the boundless ancient forest, the giant trees swelled like the waves of the sea. Countless giant wooden arms blocked the pursuing enemies. Although they could not stop the powerful Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers, they were able to delay their pursuit. However, the 2 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers were like the vanguards. The true Samadhi fire on their bodies surged and burned the wood demons in the forest until they wailed and howled. They were about to catch up to Mu Yuanzi. Mu Yuanzi had no choice but to flee underground. The 80 Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers that followed closely behind the Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers were like fish in water. They all plunged into the ground. The 2 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers and 10 Gold Soul Mystic Soldiers immediately destroyed the eyesores of the tree demons below them, preventing Mu Yuanzi from escaping through the sky. Chapter 1209. Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong also chased after him, just as they saw a bunch of Earth Soul mystic soldiers chasing them underground. When the two of them arrived, a loud boom resounded from below. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Ancient trees within a radius of several miles were sent flying. A bunch of Earth Soul mystic soldiers rushed out from underground. Among them, a late-stage Great God Realm Earth Soul mystic soldier was carrying Mu Yuanzi, whose face was deathly pale. "Run! Aren't you very good at running?" Yu Qianqiu looked at Mu Yuanzi with a ridiculing expression. This guy actually ran underground to play hide-and-seek with the Earth Soul mystic soldiers when he had nowhere to run. If this wasn't courting death, then what was? Hong Tailong also rubbed his chin and said with a sheepish smile, "To think that an old fellow like you who hides behind others would also have such a day, hee." At this moment, innumerable plant elves swarmed over from all directions. Seeing that Mu Yuanzi was captured, all of them became agitated and clamored for him to be released. Otherwise, they would not be polite to Yu Qianqiu and the others. Yu Qianqiu's brows twitched. He looked around and said, "Looks like you want to force me to start a massacre." Hong Tailong nodded his head and said in. He was eager to see the world in chaos. He rubbed his palms together and was ready to make a move. Mu Yuanzi, whose face was deathly pale, shuddered when he heard Hong Tailong's words. He said sternly, "Yu Qianqiu, don't implicate them in the grudge between us." Yu Qianqiu looked over and sneered. "That's easy. I'm not like you who can disregard the lives and deaths of others for your own sake. However, I'll say the ugly words first. You better advise them to be sensible. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Mu Yuanzi looked at the 92 God-rank soldiers that were ready to attack at any moment. He knew that once these monsters made a move, the wood elementalists would have no way to resist and would be completely slaughtered. He had no choice but to earnestly persuade the wood elementals in the ancient wood forest to quickly leave and ignore him. After a great deal of effort, countless wood elementalists dispersed while crying miserably. However, they still hid and watched from afar. The entire ancient wood forest was filled with a sorrowful atmosphere. Mu Yuanzi looked around reluctantly, guessing that Yu Qianqiu wouldn't let him go. He sighed softly and said, "Yu Qianqiu, I have another favor to ask of you." "Yay, you sure have a lot of problems." Hong Tailong glared at him with his big eyes. It seemed like he found Qin Lai to be an eyesore. Yu Qianqiu said calmly, "If I can agree, I will naturally agree. If I can't, it's useless even if you beg me. Tell me what you want first." Mu Yuanzi looked at the golden ancient language tree on the distant cliff. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "The ancient language tree is the only connection between the Wood Killer Sea and this world. Help me destroy it. Lure is innocent and kind. Let her stay in the Wood Killer Sea peacefully." Yu Qianqiu was startled. He also looked at the distant ancient language tree and fell silent for a moment. He didn't reject this request. With a thought, a fire soul mystic soldier quickly flew over. In the blink of an eye, the ancient language tree was drowned in the sea of Samadhi true fire. Immediately, the sorrowful cries of the wood elementals rang out from all directions. When the ancient language tree was completely burned to ashes by the Samadhi true fire, the fire soul mystic soldier withdrew the Samadhi true fire and flew back. Hong Tailong couldn't help but ask, "Who is Lure?" Yu Qianqiu refused to answer this question. He covered all the mystic soldiers with his divine sense and disappeared from the ancient forest. In the spacious military camp of Utopia, 92 mystic soldiers stood on the drill ground. Yu Qianqiu stood on the general appointment platform and looked at Mu Yuanzi, who was waiting for death with his eyes closed. He asked, "Do you have any last words? If you want to kill me, then kill me. Why are you so long-winded?" Mu Yuanzi sneered with his eyes closed. "Don't you have any words to leave for Lu?" Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. "What do you mean?" Mu Yuanzi's eyes were filled with anger. "Are you thinking of doing something to Lu? Don't misunderstand." Yu Qianqiu lightly waved his hand and said, "I'm afraid that Lu will be worried if she doesn't see you. Why don't you leave a letter to put her at ease?" I can help you deliver it. You don't have to worry. Mu Yuanzi refused. He was afraid that Yu Qianqiu was playing some scheme that he didn't know about. Damn it. I have good intentions, yet you don't appreciate it. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it myself, old thing. I'll deal with you later. Yu Qianqiu pointed at him and scolded. Then he took out a Jade archive and wrote a few words on it. The gist of it was, your grandfather is going to the immortal realm to cultivate. I won't be coming back anymore. Lu, you have to cultivate well and take care of yourself. After he was done, Yu Qianqiu disappeared with the Jade archive. Hong Tailong was stunned for a while. Then he chuckled and patted the dumbfounded Mu Yuanzi, saying, Did you see that? This is how that kid does things. There's no point in arguing with him. Huh. Outside Mu Shihai's treehouse, Yu Qianqiu stealthily made his way over. He peered into the empty treehouse and saw Lu sitting cross-legged on the ground, cultivating. The Jade archive in his hand flew over and directly smashed onto Lu Er's head before falling to the ground with a thud. Lu slowly opened her eyes and stopped cultivating. She rubbed her head and noticed the Jade archive on the ground. She flipped it around and looked at it, but it seemed like she had never used it before. When she injected her divine sense into it, she immediately saw the contents inside. When she finished reading it, tears rolled down her cheeks, and she cried out, Grandfather! Outside the treehouse, Yu Qianqiu secretly shook his head. He thought to himself, I've done all I can. He came and left quietly. After returning to Utopia's military camp, Yu Qianqiu walked up to Mu Yuanzi with a solemn expression. Without waiting for him to speak, Yu Qianqiu mercilessly smacked his head with his palm. In an instant, a misty green wood element exploded out, covering the sky and earth. Wherever the wind blew, flowers and trees would grow wildly. Very quickly, the area within a radius of several dozen kilometers became a boundless green sea. Yu Qianqiu forcefully held onto a wriggling green ball of light with both hands. He immediately erased the memories of the primordial spirit within it and sucked it in like a whale drawing in water. Then he dashed over to the stage and sat down cross-legged with his eyes closed, guiding the massive energy into his dantian. Once it entered his dantian, the essence within the ball of light transformed into Mu Yuanzi's image. He pounced on the green crystal bead and swallowed it. In an instant, his entire body shone with green light. Among the 5 great spirits in the world, the wood spirit had finally returned to its position. Together with the other 3 great spirits, they circled around the nascent soul in his dantian. Only the water spirit position was left empty. After swallowing Mu Yuanzi, Yu Qianqiu slowly opened his eyes a few days later. Seeing that he had woken up, Hong Tailong immediately dashed over and asked impatiently, How is it? Yu Qianqiu stood up and sensed the cultivation in his body that had swelled up to the point that he could not quite get used to it. Although he could not hide the excitement on his face, he put on an extremely regretful expression and shook his head. My cultivation is at the late stage of minor god, and Mu Yuanzi's cultivation is at the peak of the middle stage of great god. Sigh, it's too slow. You're still trying to act like you've gained something. Hong Tailong said in extreme disdain. You can just keep on showing off on the inside. Huh. Yu Qianqiu could not help but burst into wild laughter. After a long period of indulgence, he actually revealed a bitter smile. I'm afraid my cultivation will stop here. I don't know how many years it will take for me to break through again. It's a pity that I won't have the chance to swallow those water goddesses you mentioned. I wonder if there are any other water spirits out there. Hearing his lament, Hong Tailong suddenly calmed down. He frowned and asked, Are you going to eradicate the demon path led by Demon King 3 nights next? Of course. Yu Qianqiu said with great ambition, With my current strength, dealing with Demon King 3 nights shouldn't be a problem. Why? Are you still not going to deal with Yi Tiankong because of his relationship with Yi Tiankong? If that's the case, you don't have to go out. I can handle it. Although I don't know what the mission you received from Ancestor Coiling Dragon is, I really don't want to deal with Yi Tiankong's father directly. Hong Tailong smiled bitterly. After all, I've fought with Yi Tiankong before. Damn it. Not to mention that you don't know, even I don't know what the task of administering punishment on behalf of heaven is. Yu Qianshou muttered to himself before coughing and saying, "You don't have to show yourself, but you have to guide me to the netherworld divine mansion opened by ancestor Coiling Dragon." Hong Tailong raised his head in shock. "What for?" Yu Qianshou slowly paced around and said in a low voice, "The demon path has a lot of people, and who knows how many people there are in the demon world. No matter how high my cultivation is, it's impossible for me to completely eradicate them. So I want to go to the netherworld divine manor and find Wang Qing and his father. As long as I can suppress the demon world's experts, with their connections in the netherworld and immortal realms, they will be able to quickly reorganize their army to counterattack the demon path. I believe they will be very willing to do so. Then that father and son will really benefit from it." Hong Tailong clicked his tongue. Yu Qianshou snorted. "Benefit my ass. After they clean up the demon path, I'll kill the father and son. This is the price they have to pay for abandoning Mu Tianjiao. I want their entire family to be buried with Mu Tianjiao." Towards the end of his sentence, his expression and voice became stern. What he did not know was that it was not that Wu Xiong did not want to bring Mu Tianjiao away, but that Mu Tianjiao was unwilling to go with them. This was actually a gargantuan misunderstanding. However, no matter how they tried to explain, Yu Qianshou wouldn't believe them. Hong Tailong did not have any doubts about this. After a brief discussion, the two disappeared from Utopia. When they reappeared, they were already in Twilight City. At this time, the Demon Path army had already used iron-blooded methods to pacify the entire netherworld. The heroes of the netherworld only dared to be angry, but did not dare to say anything. They succumbed to the despotic power of the Demon Path and allowed themselves to be exploited. Twilight City was naturally under the control of the Demon Path. The two of them appeared in Twilight City without alarming anyone. Under Hong Tailong's guidance, the two of them quickly flew in the direction where the huge human-headed snake statue was facing. This place was not far from the Netherworld River Basin, so the two of them quickly arrived above the Netherworld River. Hong Tailong said as he flew, "I have never been to the Netherworld Divine Manor, but I know that the basin where the demon god statue is facing is the widest basin of the Netherworld River. In the middle of this basin, which is also the deepest part of the Netherworld River, is the entrance to the Netherworld Divine Manor that Patriarch Coiling Dragon opened back then. Chapter 12:10. Yu Qianshou replied with an "oh" and looked back at Twilight City. Unfortunately, he couldn't see the broken statue anymore. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "So that broken statue is the statue of the demon god? Why did so many powerful ancient gods not leave any statues in the three realms, but this unknown demon god? Nobody knows about you? Are you kidding me?" Hong Tailong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pointed at him as he flew, not knowing what to say. "What's wrong?" Yu Qianshou was puzzled. "Did I say something wrong? Could there be a demon god among the ancient gods in the legends? But why have I never heard of it?" Hong Tailong scratched his head and didn't know how to explain. He smiled bitterly and said, "This demon god appeared earlier than the ancient gods, but when the ancient gods became famous, she was already gone. It's not strange that you haven't heard of her. In fact, there aren't many people who know of her. If I wasn't from the dragon race, I might not have heard of her either. Oh, seems like she's a very powerful person. Tell me, what's going on with this demon god?" Since the journey was boring, Yu Qianshou suddenly became interested. "Let me explain it to you this way." Hong Tailong organized his thoughts and explained with a solemn expression. "The demon god was originally a servant of Tao. My dragon race's Coiling Dragon ancestor and Phoenix race's Great Phoenix god were the left and right envoys of the demon god a long time ago. I heard that the demon god was later sent to another space-time by Tao. I don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, the demon god disappeared after that. Since then, my dragon race's Coiling Dragon ancestor and Phoenix race's Great Phoenix god directly listened to Tao. Do you think she's powerful? Powerful. Yuchincho took a deep breath and said in shock, even Great Phoenix God and Coiling Dragon God are her envoys. Oh my. Then how high is her cultivation? I wonder if she's compared to the former Great God E, whose cultivation is higher. I don't know about that. I've never heard of them competing before, so I can't compare. Hong Tailong scratched his head and pondered, but the demon god appeared earlier than Great God E. It should be because the demon god's cultivation is higher. Otherwise, how could the dire monster goddess Niwa have become the maidservant of the Tao? WH what? When Yuchincho heard this, it was as if he'd been struck by lightning. He suddenly grabbed Hong Tailong, and the two of them stopped above the vast Netherworld River. Hong Tailong was instantly baffled. He realized that Yuchincho's hand, which was grabbing onto his arm, was actually trembling. He asked in astonishment, "What's wrong with you?" "Yu, what did you just say?" Yuchincho's voice trembled. It was hard to tell if he was excited or shocked. He tried his best to calm down and asked, "What did you say the demon god was called?" "Can you repeat it? I didn't hear you clearly. What's the name of the demon god?" Hong Tailong was at a complete loss. With a blank expression, he said, "The name of the demon god is Niwa." "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" "Niwa. Niwa. It's actually Niwa, a human head and a snake body. I was wondering why this sculpture looks so familiar." Yuchincho suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of Twilight City. However, he could only see the vast Netherworld River and nothing else. He looked in that direction with a confused expression and muttered to himself, "Niwa. It's actually the Niwa who refined the multicolored stone to mend the sky." So Niwa was originally a person of this world. What's going on? When Hong Tailong heard him mumbling to himself, he could not help but nudge him and ask, "What are you talking about this time? What refining the five-colored stone to mend the heavens? What people of this world? I've never heard of any of them. Don't tell me you've met Goddess Niwa." Goddess Niwa, what a familiar name. Yuchincho's face was filled with bitterness. Suddenly, he thought of something and grabbed Hong Tailong again. He asked with widened eyes, "What did you just say?" "You said that the dire monster goddess Niwa was sent to another space-time by the Tao. Which space-time is it?" "Are you crazy?" Hong Tailong pulled back his sleeves and said with a baffled expression, "That's what the legend says, but how would I know which space-time she was sent to?" "You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask?" "I say, did you take the wrong medicine? Why are you competing with Goddess Niwa? The Netherworld River is below. Even if your brain is filled with water, you should jump down first." "Damn you, why am I competing with her?" "She's the one competing with me, all right?" Yuchincho said with grief and indignation. "Damn it, of all the names she could have, why did she have to be called Niwa? Isn't this a trap? Who did I offend to be sent here to trace the source?" "She's competing with you." Hong Tailong revealed a mocking smile. He was just short of saying, "You think you're worthy." However, he was startled right after and couldn't help but let out a soft gasp of surprise. He muttered, "Refining the multicolored stone. Refining the multicolored stone." Hearing this, Yuchincho's eyes lit up. He grabbed Hong Tailong's neck with both hands and shook him, saying, "Have you heard of this legend as well?" His current cultivation was much higher than Hong Tailong's. How could Hong Tailong endure his death grip? Hong Tailong's eyes rolled back as he was pinched to the point where his eyes rolled back. With great difficulty, he managed to pry Jiang Yi's hand away. He roared, "Are you crazy? This old dragon has a grudge against you." It was a slip of the hand, a slip of the hand. After apologizing profusely, Yuchincho said with sincerity, "Have you also heard of the legend of Niwa refining the multicolored stone to mend the heavens?" "Tui, where did you hear that lousy legend? Mend the heavens? I think it's more like mend the earth. Why don't you mend the heavens for me to see?" Hong Tailong pointed at the illusory sky in annoyance. He twisted his neck that was being strangled. After relaxing for a while, he said, "Speaking of refining the multicolored stone, I vaguely remember hearing another legend when I was in the dragon race. It seems like the demon goddess Niwa also possesses the 5 elemental mystic arts just like you. I don't know if I've remembered wrongly or if I've really heard of it before." My lord Tai Long, please don't remember wrongly. Yu Qianqiu bowed repeatedly and pleaded, please think carefully again. Hong Tai Long waved his hand, indicating that he shouldn't disturb him. Yu Qianqiu immediately held his breath and waited with rapt attention. He looked at Hong Tai Long's wandering gaze as he racked his brains. After a long while, Hong Tai Long scratched his forehead and said, I seem to have heard someone say this back then. They said that if a person was proficient in the 5 elemental mystic arts, then that person would have grasped one of the most mystical sources in the world and could create a living person out of thin air. It seems like someone used Goddess Nuwa as an example and said that Goddess Nuwa could create humans. Then, according to this saying, doesn't it mean that Goddess Nuwa was also proficient in the 5 elemental mystic arts? As he said that, he shook his head and said, I really can't remember clearly. It seems like I've heard someone casually mention it once. As for the specifics, no matter how you force me, I can't remember it. Nuwa created humans. Yu Qianqiu was once again dumbfounded. He couldn't help but look at his own hands. Although Hong Tai Long couldn't remember clearly and had only vaguely summarized it, he had heard of the legend of Nuwa creating humans from clay in his previous life. There was indeed such a legend. In other words, Nuwa might really be proficient in the 5 elemental mystic arts. Conversely, the legend of Nuwa creating humans in his previous life was very likely real. It wasn't just an illusory legend. Using the same logic, it meant that as long as he cultivated all the 5 elemental mystic arts, he would be able to create living humans. What kind of mystic art would that be? Nuwa mending the heavens. Yu Qianqiu's eyes flickered as he raised his head to look at the void. Since it was true that Nuwa created humans, then it was very likely that Nuwa mending the heavens was also true. However, how could this illusory sky be broken? Just as he was thinking about it aimlessly, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind, causing his body to tremble. If it was in his previous life, he definitely wouldn't be able to figure out how the illusory sky could be broken. However, he had found a reason now. The so-called breaking of the sky could be understood as an opening in the sky. It was very likely that the passageway between the 2 realms or someone with high cultivation had directly torn open the void. As for the so-called Nuwa refining the 5-colored divine stone to mend the heavens, it was because of the 5-colored light that shone when she took out the 5 elemental mystic arts. This caused people to misunderstand that she had actually used the 5 elemental mystic arts to seal the passageway between the 2 realms. This reason was the most perfect answer. If it was said that the legend of Ho Yi still made Yu Qianqiu uncertain about anything, now the matter of Nuwa completely matched the legend of his previous life. In other words, the time and space that Dao sent Nuwa to was actually the time and space that he had been in his previous life. Similarly, it meant that it was completely possible for him to return to the time and space that belonged to him, provided that his cultivation had reached a certain level. The blood in Yu Qianqiu's heart was instantly boiling. No matter how glorious he was in this world, there was always a sense of estrangement. He was born to be incompatible with this world. Even though he knew that there was no hope of returning, his heart was still haunted by the world that he had been in his previous life. The sense of belonging to the Chinese people in his previous life had always been deeply buried in his heart. That was the destiny of his soul. But today, on this very day, he suddenly found a way to return to his previous life. Even though this method was extremely uncertain to him at the moment, he was full of ambition. He firmly believed that there was no difficulty that could stop him from returning. The strong sense of belonging filled him with hope for his future. Even if the future was filled with thorns and obstacles, he would never take a step back. From the first day he came to this world until now, this was the first time he had such a clear and impartial goal: to return home. Hey, what's wrong with you? Hong Tai Long nudged the bewitched Yu Qianqiu awake. With a face full of suspicion, he asked, Tell me honestly, why are you so interested in the matters of the demon goddess Nuwa? Yu Qianqiu looked at Hong Tai Long, his eyes almost brimming with tears. He opened his arms and hugged Hong Tai Long tightly. He patted his back forcefully and said, This trip is worth it. It's F asterisk asterisk king worth it. Hong Tai Long. Yu Chincho, thank you. Chapter 12:11. No. Hong Tai Long pushed him away, looked at him from head to toe, then shook his head and said in a deep voice, definitely not. Kid, you must be hiding something. Tell me honestly, what the hell are you doing? Yu Qianqiu put on a serious look and said seriously, it's about the great task of punishing on behalf of the coiling dragon god. So I can't tell you. You. Hong Tai Long popped out his eyes, swung his sleeves, and became speechless. Hee. Let's go. Let's keep moving. When we have a chance, I'll treat you to a cigarette, and you'll understand. Yu Qianqiu happily kept flying forward, his heart filled with endless longing. Dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. Smoke? Hong Tai Long followed Ji Hao with confusion, asking him what he meant by smoke. Nowadays, the river Styx wasn't peaceful. Back then, Bai Qi and Jin Tai dared not to attack the aquatic creatures of the river Styx because of the Netherworld Divine Palace. But the army of Devil didn't care about that. They were worried that they couldn't find a suitable opportunity to attack the Netherworld Divine Palace. And so, the aquatic creatures of the river Styx suffered. After settling the Netherworld warriors on land, a few Devil Kings were sent to lead the army of Devil to wipe out the aquatic creatures along the river Styx. Any aquatic creature that dared not to surrender was exterminated. As for those who had surrendered, they were forced to be the vanguard of the army of the Devil League. In the end, almost all of the water clan of the Netherworld River that had surrendered were driven to the widest area of the Netherworld River Basin, and the Netherworld Divine Palace was surrounded inside and outside. Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tai Long were heading to the Netherworld Divine Palace, so it was inevitable that they would run into them. In the widest area of the river Styx, a small island stood in the middle. On the island, fires were sparkling, and there were delicacies and wine, as well as beautiful dancers and dancers. Evil Spirit and Snake Xiao, the two Devil Kings, had their arms around the beautiful girls on both sides. Sitting below them, their subordinates were raising their glasses and drinking. Some of them were even doing lustful things in front of the crowd. The entire island was suffused with a lustful atmosphere. The beautiful women serving on this island were all good-looking ones from the aquatic creatures of the river Styx, such as Li Li, the third princess of Li Palace. At the moment, Snake Xiao was holding her in his arms, groping her from head to toe, and even offering her wine with a forced smile on her face. She couldn't do anything about it. The lives of her parents and the people of Li Palace were all in Snake Xiao's hands. If Snake Xiao didn't satisfy her, a black carp would be slaughtered, carried to the island, roasted, and shared. While drinking, Snake Xiao raised his cup to Evil Spirit, who was sitting on the opposite side, then drained the cup with one gulp. Next, Snake Xiao held Li Li in his arms and rolled on the bed. More or less, Li Li still cared about her sense of shame. When her clothes were taken off by Snake Xiao, she didn't forget to put down the veil hanging on the bed. He was just trying to deceive himself. What could a layer of gauze do to the cultivators outside? Not to mention, it was illuminated by the flames. When the people outside saw the overflowing scene inside, they all burst into laughter and went about their own business. Great Demon King Qi didn't back down either. He directly dragged two aquatic beauties to the bed and enjoyed himself to the fullest. At this moment, Hong Tai Long's laughter could be heard from the sky. These evil people are indeed having a good time. People on the island raised their heads and looked at the sky. Demon and Snake Xiao directly pulled down the black carp and shouted at the sky, "Who's there?" At the moment, Yu Qianqiu stood in the air with his hands held behind his body, sneering. The first people he paid attention to were surely the two people who were qualified to sit on the bed. With his current power, he wouldn't put them in his eyes at all. However, he paused as soon as he glanced around, because he saw Li Li, who was still under Snake Xiao's body and had her breasts exposed. They were old acquaintances, so Li Li surely knew him. Seeing him, she paused as well. Lying on the bed, she turned her face away in shame. Even in his dreams, Yu Qianqiu had never imagined that the lofty and virtuous third princess of Li Palace would actually do such a thing in such an occasion. He had thought that he had seen wrongly. After all, there were people who looked similar, and the other party had also taken off her clothes. However, the other party's reaction immediately made him understand that the woman who was having fun under the crotch of a devil was really the third princess of Li Palace, Li Li. Yu Qianqiu sighed slightly in his head. He roughly guessed that Devil Dao had been running rampant in the three worlds, and that she was probably forced to do this. But, as a former princess, she had fallen to such a state, which made people sigh with emotion. Down below, Demon and Snake Xiao had already swiftly put on their clothes and dashed up. Yu Qianqiu conveniently threw out a pair of divine swords. As a late-stage divine god, dealing with two middle-stage small god devil kings was as easy as blowing off dust. Two beams of golden light flashed as fast as lightning bolts. Before the two devil kings could say a word, they burst into shrill screams and were chopped into a rain of blood. The alarm was sent out. Immediately, countless devil armies and water-kind creatures surged out of the Nether River. However, seeing the two devil kings being killed so easily, they immediately realized that a powerful being was coming. Therefore, none of them dared to make any reckless moves. Yu Qianqiu glanced at Li Li, who had hurriedly put on her clothes, then turned around, looked at Hong Tai Long, and said, "Is the Netherworld Divine Palace down there?" "Indeed. Why don't we slaughter these bastards first?" Hong Tai Long said as he rubbed his palms together. However, Yu Qianqiu had already teleported down to the island. Glancing at Li Li, who was wearing a sexy and revealing outfit, Yu Qianqiu thought for a while and decided to pretend that he didn't know her. He turned his back to her. Hong Tai Long flashed down, but didn't find anything strange. Instead, he asked again, "Are we just going to let them go like this?" Yu Qianqiu raised his head and glanced at the crowd in the sky, then at Li Guang and Snake Xiao, who had also turned their heads away in shame. With a cold look in his eyes, Yu Qianqiu growled, "If you don't want to die, piss off. Anyone who stands in my way will die." Li Li looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was wearing a cyan robe and standing with his hands clasped behind his back. She had heard about how Yu Qianqiu fought against Demon King 3 nights long ago, but she didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had already become so powerful that he could easily kill 2 Devil Kings. After a moment of hesitation, she sent a pleading voice transmission. "Yu Qianqiu, please save my Li Palace's water tribe. As long as you save my Li Palace's water tribe, I, Li Li, will be your slave and servant to repay you." Yu Qianqiu didn't turn his head. He only furrowed his brows and replied with a deep voice transmission. "Third princess, it's fine if you fall into depravity because of a moment of helplessness, but you mustn't abandon yourself to depravity. That will become a habit, and there's no cure for it. I, Yu Qianqiu, don't need you to be my slave or servant. It won't be long before the time to counterattack the devil path arrives. Take care of yourself." With that, he waved at Hong Tai Long, and the two of them flashed into the underworld river. Li Li looked at the tattered gauze on her body and bit her lips. After Hong Tai Long and Yu Qianqiu dove to the bottom of the underworld river, which was several thousand meters deep, they discovered a huge gate that was glowing with fluorescent light on the mountain wall at the bottom of the river. The top of the gate was embedded with a water-repelling pearl that glowed with a gentle white light, and the words "Netherworld Divine Manor" were engraved on the beam below it. There were still quite a few people guarding the gate. The two of them lightly flew over, and none of the guards dared to stop them, so they all moved aside. Hong Tai Long directly went forward and pushed open the gate. Immediately, he saw a white light swirling around the passage between the two worlds. The two of them flashed into it and disappeared. When the two of them reappeared in a world that was bright and beautiful with sunlight, there were quite a few meditation cultivators and blue-clothed people who immediately flashed over from both sides. They stared at them like tigers watching their prey. Among them, someone actually cried out in surprise, "Yu Qianqiu, Yu Qianqiu had not expected that someone would recognize him the first time he stepped into the netherworld divine manor. He looked at that person and realized that he did not know him. However, from his attire, he could tell that this person was from the unrequited love palace. Clearly, this person had seen him before. Therefore, Feng Xingjian shook his head and smiled at Hong Tailong, saying, "Looks like I didn't find the wrong place. Wang Qing and his son are really here." He then turned back and said to the person who had spoken, "Tell Wang Qing that I'm here and I want to meet him." Although these people were on guard, they did not act recklessly. Simultaneously, a meditation cultivator and a disciple of the unrequited love palace left at the same time. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong strolled forward and observed their surroundings. Not long after, over 10 streams of light arrived at the same time. Wu Feng, Wu Xiong, Wang Qing, and Madame Blackpool were all present. There were also quite a few old fellows. Yu Qianqiu paid attention to the cultivation of these old fellows and realized that they were all at the god level. The one with the highest cultivation had actually reached the mid-stage of the great god level. It could be seen that this netherworld divine manor was indeed a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The moment Wu Xiong saw Yu Qianqiu, he flew into a rage. He pointed at Yu Qianqiu and scolded, "Yu Qianqiu, how dare you come here to die?" It would have been better if he had not spoken. The moment he spoke, Yu Qianqiu thought of the dead Mu Tianjiao. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and grabbed. Wu Xiong immediately felt a strong suction force. He was sucked over like a leaf. How could a mere immortal emperor like him go against the current Yu Qianqiu? Wu Feng and the others were shocked. The mid-stage great god elder, standing in the middle, immediately teleported over and grabbed Wu Xiong, forcefully dragging him back. However, after this exchange, his expression also changed. He realized that Yu Qianqiu's cultivation was actually higher than his. No wonder he could not see through Yu Qianqiu's cultivation. Yu Qianqiu was not here to kill, so he stopped. However, he pointed at Wu Xiong, who was still in a state of shock, and shouted, "If I want to kill you, it will be as easy as lifting a finger. These people cannot stop me. You are a despicable person who can even abandon your wife to escape. Killing you will dirty my hands. Scram to the side. There is no place for you to speak here." "You are Yu Qianqiu." Wu Feng walked out. The divine wind staff in his hand lit up. He sneered and was about to speak, as if he was laughing at Yu Qianqiu for boasting and wanting to use the divine wind staff to teach him a lesson. Who knew that the mid-stage great god elder stretched out his hand to stop him? The elder shook his head and said, "You are not his match." As soon as these words were spoken, it wasn't just Wu Feng. Even Wang Qing and the others were quite shocked. They sized up Yu Qianqiu with surprise and bewilderment, and they slightly doubted whether this person was really Yu Qianqiu. Wu Feng even cried out, "Godfather, are you seeing things?" "Godfather? Damn!" Yu Qianqiu glanced at the two of them and cursed in his heart. I was wondering why Wu Feng dared to hide in the netherworld god manor. It turns out that he found a godfather here. The mid-stage great god elder cupped his hands and said, "This old man is Wan Tianbua. I didn't think that there would be an expert like Little Brother in the Three Realms. I wonder why Little Brother has come to the netherworld god manor." Chapter 12:12. Look, you guys can learn from him. Yu Qianqiu pointed at Wan Tianbua and clicked his tongue at Wu Feng and the others. "Brother Wan is my brother, but you foster children and grandchildren don't even know the basic courtesy to your elders. Are your heads growing on your butts?" The faces of Wu Feng and the others darkened immediately. Hong Tailong secretly laughed at the side. He found that this kid's mouth was really sharp. Wan Tianbua's face slightly stiffened, but he still squeezed out a smile and said, "Brother, you didn't come here just to make fun of us, did you? I'm not such a petty person." Yu Qianqiu smilingly walked over, looked Wan Tianbua up and down, and said, "I heard that there's a passage leading to the divine realm in the netherworld divine palace. Therefore, a group of experts is cultivating here, hoping to ascend to the divine realm through the passage. I didn't believe it before, but after seeing Brother Juan, I truly believe it. Juan Tianbua and the other old guys glanced at each other, then asked, "Could it be that, brother, you also came to the Netherworld Divine Palace to look for the passage to the divine realm?" Yu Qianshou rolled his eyes at him, then patted his chest and said shamelessly, "If I want to go to the divine realm, I can open the passage to the divine realm at any time. Do I still need to look for it?" While everyone was trying to figure out what he meant, Yu Qianshou pointed at Hong Tailong and said, "He is from the Dragon Clan in the divine realm. This Netherworld Divine Palace was created by their old ancestor, Coiling Dragon. With him here, I can ask for his help at any time if I want to go to the divine realm. Hong Tailong, show them what you can do." Hong Tailong didn't know what he was up to, but he still raised his head and roared towards the sky. Then he leaped up into the air and directly showed his true form of a fiery red dragon. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he soared into the sky. From time to time, he would roar majestically, stunning the group of people who were watching. When Hong Tailong transformed back into his human form and landed beside Yu Qianshou, the group of people finally recovered from their shock. Wan Tianbua even led a group of old guys and saluted to Hong Tailong, so it really is the envoy of the Dragon Clan. "We didn't pay attention just now. Please forgive us, envoy." Hong Tailong? After Wu Feng muttered to himself, he suddenly pointed at Hong Tailong in shock and said, "You are the divine dragon that the Myriad Swords demon monarch used to ride. Aren't you already dead?" When Hong Tailong heard this, he immediately blew his beard and glared. "Bah, who's his mount? You're the one who died." Yu Qianshou immediately came out to smooth things over. "Huh, it's all a misunderstanding. Back then, he sneaked down from the immortal world to the lower realm to have fun. He accidentally bumped into the Myriad Swords demon monarch and stirred up trouble together. In the end, he was discovered by Patriarch Coiling Dragon and brought back to the immortal world." Hearing this, everyone nodded, revealing an understanding expression. Hong Tailong rolled his eyes and did not expose him. After all, it was not nice to say that he had been trapped for 100,000 years. Wan Tianbua cupped his hands towards Hong Tailong and said, "Could it be that Dragon Envoy has come to the Netherworld God Manor to return to the divine realm?" The others also perked up their ears. They harbored the same thoughts as Wan Tianbua, preparing to follow Hong Tailong to see where the passageway to the divine realm was. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianshou took over and said, "Now is not the time for him to return. Right now, the demonic path is slaughtering the innocent in the three realms. He and I have received the decree of great God Coiling Dragon. We are prepared to execute punishment on behalf of the heavens and eradicate the demonic path in one fell swoop, returning peace to the three realms." Could this be the mission of executing punishment on behalf of the heavens? Hong Tailong muttered in his heart. Although he was doubtful, on the surface, he maintained a dignified and heavy, indicating that it was indeed the case. Wan Tianbua realized that it was not convenient to communicate with Hong Tailong. Hence, he turned to the representative, Yu Qianshou, and asked, "Then why did the two of you come here this time?" He could not help but look at Wu Feng and the others. He had long heard of Yu Qianshou from their mouths. Now, he could not help but suspect that Yu Qianshou had come to take revenge on them. Yu Qianshou said righteously, "The reason is very simple. I want you to assist me in completely eradicating the demonic path. When the time comes, those who have made great contributions will have the chance to ascend to the divine realm." Everyone looked at each other. The group of old fellows were overjoyed, but they also had some misgivings. Wan Tianbua said in a low voice, "It's not impossible for us to assist the envoy in eradicating the demonic path, but the demonic arts of Demon Monarch 3 Knights are not to be underestimated. Furthermore, he has the support of the demonic path's eunuch Li, who has a profound cultivation. I'm afraid we will not have the strength to do so. You don't have to worry about that. Eunuch Li has already died by my hands. I will deal with Demon Monarch 3 Knights." Yu Qianshou's gaze landed on Wu Feng and his family. He said in a low voice, What you need to do is to quickly contact the heroes of the three realms to resist the demonic path and fight to completely eradicate them. Wu Feng and the others were naturally more than happy to have such a good thing. However, Wan Tianbua cupped his hands and said, "Can you allow us to discuss this further? Also, there are dozens of experts scattered throughout the Netherworld God Manor. If we can obtain their help, it will be a great help." Yu Qianqiu had originally planned on persuading Wu Feng and the others to help, but he had not expected so many experts to come to help. He naturally did not mind the number of people and immediately agreed. "All right, give me a reply as soon as possible." "Of course." Wan Tianbo revealed a joyful expression and made an inviting gesture behind him. "Envoys, why don't you come rest in my humble abode? I will inform you as soon as I have a reply." Yu Qianqiu nodded in agreement. After all, he also wanted to see what the Netherworld God Manor was like. Therefore, under the protection of a group of people, they went to a tall mountain 100 miles away. The pavilion on the mountain peak was covered with clouds and mist like a fairyland. It was Wan Tianbua's abode. After arranging a room for the two to rest, Wan Tianbua and the others hurriedly went to contact people everywhere. However, Madame Blackpool took the initiative to serve the guests. She wanted to rely on her beauty to climb up the ladder of the immortal realm, and Yu Qianqiu had heard of her reputation for a long time. He knew that she used to be the favorite concubine of the Emperor of the Underworld, Bai Qi. So, he pulled Hong Tailong to lie on the bed side by side, enjoying her massage. Madame Blackpool did not expect the two to be indifferent to her seduction and only let her do this. As a result, her hands became weak from the massage. It was only when the two wanted to look around the Netherworld God Manor that they finally let her go. Madame Blackpool then found a chance to run away. The area of the Netherworld God Manor was not large. In general, there was nothing special about it. It could only be said to be an excellent quiet place for cultivation. As for Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong, they did not come to see the scenery. Their real purpose was to find out where the passage to the immortal realm was. With their cultivation, they spent 2 days wandering around, but they still could not find the passage to the immortal realm. They even wandered around the Coiling Dragon mountain range, which was like a crouching tiger or a coiling dragon. This was the place where the Coiling Dragon god cultivated in the past, but they still could not find it. After the two returned to Wan Tianbua's abode dejectedly, Wan Tianbua brought them the conclusion of their discussion. He said that he had contacted all parties and they agreed to help the two messengers eradicate the demonic path in one fell swoop. They would gather here tomorrow. Yu Qianqiu expressed his admiration for this. Late at night, the two lay side by side on the roof and looked at the stars. They set up a soundproof enchantment and chatted idly. "Hong Tailong, are you sure that the passage to the immortal realm left by the Coiling Dragon god is in the Netherworld God Manor?" This shouldn't be wrong, right? Listening to his tone, even Hong Tailong himself was a little doubtful. He thought about it and said, "When I came to the lower realm, someone told me that if I want to return to the immortal realm, I can open the passage to the immortal realm in the Netherworld God Manor. That passage can only be opened by the secret method of the Dragon Clan, so as long as I get close to the passage, I will be able to feel his presence. But I've wandered around everywhere, and I really can't feel anything." "That's strange." Yu Qianqiu lay there and twisted his neck. He looked at the stars in the night sky and said, "There's nothing on the ground, so it can't be in the sky." As he said that, he paused, and the two of them looked at each other. It was an unintentional remark, but the two of them suddenly sat up and said in unison, "In the sky." Suddenly, the two of them got excited. Yu Qianqiu nodded repeatedly to confirm his guess, but then he frowned and said, "Even if it's in the sky, there's not even a coordinate in this illusory sky. I'm afraid it'll be troublesome to search everywhere." "There's no need to search everywhere. I've guessed where it is." Hong Tailong waved his hand happily and whispered into his ear, "Old ancestor Coiling Dragon will definitely not open the passage aimlessly. If I'm not wrong, the passage is above the Mount Coiling Dragon that we've searched before. It's just that we didn't think of looking up at the top at that time." "That's not right." Yu Qinshu shook his head and said doubtfully, "When those fellows in the netherworld god-manor search for the passage to the immortal realm, the first place they would choose is the Mount Coiling Dragon where the great god Coiling Dragon cultivated. I'm afraid that place has already been searched thoroughly by them." Hong Tailong laughed and said, "Hee hee, you don't know this. Even if the unopened passage is placed in front of them, they might not be able to find it. This passage is specially open for our dragon clan, and it leads directly to the divine dragon mountain in the immortal realm. How can it be easily entered and exited by outsiders? Since you're so confident, we'll look again after we settle the matter here." Yu Qinshu's tone was still somewhat doubtful. The next day, the experts in the netherworld god manor gathered. There were actually more than 60 experts above a minor god level, and 4 of them were great gods. Wan Tianbua's cultivation was the highest. Everyone came to pay their respects to the Dragon Clan envoy. Yu Qinshu paid close attention and thought to himself, no wonder the Wind God staff would fall into Wu Feng's hands. After a simple exchange of greetings, Yu Qinshu found out that many of these people had fought against the demonic path before the demonic world was sealed. It was also because of their existence that the demonic path did not completely unify the 3 realms back then. It was just that no one was a match for Demon Monarch 3 Knights' demonic arts. Everyone was filled with ambition as they set off to the netherworld to slay the demons. Who knew that when they arrived at the exit of the netherworld god manor, the exit had actually been sealed from the outside? In other words, everyone was sealed inside. Who's so daring to seal the netherworld god manor created by great god Coiling Dragon? Wan Tianbua roared, and the others also stood at the exit and cursed. Yu Qinshu thought to himself, great god Coiling Dragon is nothing. You probably don't know that Mo Shun is currently the #1 expert in the immortal realm. Someone even dared to seal the demonic world created by the #1 expert in the immortal realm, let alone great god Coiling Dragons. However, Yu Qinshu naturally wouldn't reveal Mo Shun's awesome identity in the immortal realm. He was mainly afraid that it would scare everyone away from slaying the demons. It should be known that these people wholeheartedly wanted to mingle in the immortal realm and had always longed for the beauty of the immortal realm. If they really knew how powerful Mo Shun was, who would dare to offend the #1 expert in the immortal realm? Chapter 12:13. Other than Demon King 3 Knights, I reckon no one else would do this, Yu Qinshu said to everyone as he stood beside Wan Tianbua. He reckoned that Demon King 3 Knights had done this after hearing that he had barged into the netherworld divine residence. He really didn't learn from his mistakes. Was this useful? Everyone thought about it and agreed. Wan Tianbua asked, with the divine residence sealed, how are we going to exterminate the demonic Tao? Insignificant tricks can't stop me. Yu Qinshu flashed to an empty space at the side. He used the earth art and slowly raised his arms. A messy formation immediately appeared on the empty space. He probably didn't even know what formation it was, but he was shamelessly calling everyone into the formation. Everyone walked in carefully, not knowing what was going on. They closed their eyes according to his instructions and immediately felt their surroundings change. Suddenly, they realized that they were in ice-cold water. Everyone couldn't help but open their eyes in shock. In the end, they discovered that they were in the Netherworld River. They all praised how amazing it was. After everyone floated to the surface, Yu Qinshu pointed into the distance and said, I believe everyone is familiar with this place. That is the entrance to the Netherworld Divine Residence. Let's go see what's going on. The group immediately flew over. Before they even got close to the island, some people started to obstruct them. There were demonic Tao, meditation cultivators, and a Netherworld River's water race. However, how could they be a match for these people? There was almost no effect in obstructing them. However, at this moment, bolts of lightning suddenly appeared in the pitch-black night sky. It was abnormally strange in this endless darkness. As thunder rarely appeared in the Netherworld realm, it immediately raised everyone's vigilance. After careful observation, they discovered that there were dark clouds surging within the lightning. Following that, heart-palpitating gales were created, causing the waves in the Netherworld River to surge into the sky. What a heavy demonic chi! Wan Tianbua's pupils contracted. He looked at the shocked people around him and said, "It seems like Demon King 3 Nights has come personally." Suddenly, a phosphorescent light shot into the sky in the distance. In an instant, a green sea of fire spread out in all directions like a blanket. In the blink of an eye, the surging clouds in the sky were all burned into a green sea of fire. The world was covered in a horrifying shade of green, and the raging Netherworld River below was also dyed a reflective green. Wu Feng and the others looked at each other. They were sure that Demon King 3 Nights had arrived, because they had already seen Demon King 3 Nights move back in the immortal world. It could be said that they still had lingering fears. Yu Qianqiu, he did not see the demon lord of the 3 Nights, but he could hear his voice reverberating through the air. As expected, a mere seal is indeed unable to stop you. Have you invited all those cowards from the Netherworld Divine Palace? Good. This monarch has been waiting for a long time. Today, this monarch will let loose and have a decisive battle with all of you. And from now on, I'll completely pacify the 3 realms. The arrogance in his words was unbridled. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly and beckoned to the crowd. "I'll deal with San Yi. I'll leave the rest of you guys. Let's go." The group quickly flew away and stopped about 1,000 meters away from the island. In the sky above the island, there was a ball of blood-red light shining. Within that ball of light, Demon King 3 Nights stood with his arms crossed. The scarlet cloak behind him flapped up and down like a curtain of blood. The ball of blood-red light that enveloped San Yi was refracted from it. Dense black, demonic energy faintly seeped out of the cloak, entangling into the shape of demonic dragons that danced around the blood-red light. Before they even got close, they could already feel the breathtaking demonic energy from Demon King 3 Nights' body. Even Yu Qianqiu, who was now a late-stage great god, felt somewhat affected. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes and stared at the scarlet cloak on Sanya's shoulders that was filled with a terrifying aura. He felt that something was wrong. He had seen Sanya's cloak before, and it did not give off such a powerful pressure. The world was green, and Demon King 3 Nights' body was wrapped in blood-red light and shrouded in black demonic energy, making him look unique. Behind San Yi were 12 great demon kings lined up in a row, glaring like tigers watching their prey. Behind them were countless figures, including the demonic Dao army, underworld cultivators, and the river Styx's water race. Just from this aura, even Wan Tianbua and the other old fellows felt somewhat apprehensive. At this moment, a black crescent suddenly flashed out from the cloak on San Yi's back. It floated in front of San Yi and swayed faintly. Demon Blade. Yu Qianqiu's pupils constricted. He was too familiar with that thing. The demonic blade that had been taken away by the demonic god was now in the hands of the demon monarch 3 Nights. Even an idiot could guess what was going on. He gritted his teeth and said, "No wonder you dare to be so arrogant. It turns out that the demonic god is helping you from behind." He could faintly guess the origins of that cloak. It might have been given to San Yi by Demon God, but he didn't know what kind of powerful treasure it was. For a moment, he didn't dare to act rashly. Demon King 3 Nights coldly snorted, then slightly tilted his head and ordered, "Tuanhai, Xiang Rong, I'll leave the water to you." "Yes." The two immediately led their tens of thousands of subordinates into the river Styx. Demon King 3 Nights once again ordered in a cadence. All underworld cultivators and river Styx's water race immediately attack. Anyone who hesitates will be killed. Everyone else, surround them. Don't let them escape. With his order, the hundreds of thousands of underworld cultivators and river Styx's water race were immediately forced to swarm forward, circling left and right to surround Yu Qianqiu and the others. The demonic Dao army, under the leadership of the remaining 10 demon kings, quickly formed an even larger encirclement. Only Demon King 3 knights floated in the air, unmoving. Yu Qianzhou's gaze swept left and right, finding Li Palace's third princess Li Li and the others in the crowd. He immediately pointed at Demon King 3 knights and gritted his teeth. Sanyi, you're sending them to their deaths. Sanya's answer was practical action. He raised one arm to the sky, and green flames surged in the sky. Large masses of green fire immediately poured down. To the deity-level experts like Yu Qianzhou and the others, these things couldn't harm them at all. However, the hundreds of thousands of underworld cultivators and the river Styx's water race immediately cried out in alarm, screaming as they scattered in all directions. However, when the green flames fell into the water, they actually didn't go out. Instead, they floated in the water, absorbing the water like oil and increasing the intensity of the fire. Some people tried to break through the sea of flames on the surface of the water, but they were immediately killed by the people hiding in the water. In addition, these things were very difficult to extinguish once they came into contact with them. As a result, most of the people began to flee in all directions. The demonic Tao army's huge encirclement immediately began to take effect. Anyone who tried to escape was immediately killed by them, forcing them to return and fight with Yu Qianzhou and the others. Bastard! Yu Qianzhou spat. He spun his arms and used a water art, preparing to help everyone open a path through the river Styx. However, he didn't expect that Demon King 3 knights, who had been staring at him like a tiger watching its prey, would immediately find a chance to attack. Taking advantage of the instant Yu Qianzhou made a move, Devil Monarch 3 knights, who was wrapped in red light, teleported and shouted, "Devil Fist!" Yu Qianzhou was shocked and had no choice but to give up on saving everyone. He directly punched out. Bang! A powerful shockwave formed a huge ball that exploded in the sky. For a moment, countless people were affected, and even Wan Tianbo and the others quickly dodged. Fire and water mixed together on the surface of the river Styx, and screams filled the air. Yu Qianzhou and Demon King 3 knights were simultaneously sent flying 1,000 meters away. This exchange gave the two a huge shock. Demon King 3 knights didn't expect Yu Qianzhou's cultivation to increase again in such a short period of time. Yu Qianzhou's cultivation was actually a level higher than his. If not for the extraordinary power of the heavenly demon fist, even if he didn't die, he would have been heavily injured. Yu Qianzhou, who only dared to exchange blows with Demon King 3 knights because of the sudden increase in his cultivation, also didn't expect the heavenly demon fist to be so powerful. At this moment, his entire body was in a state of numbness, and a strange, complicated force was rampaging through his body. Wan Tianbo, what are you waiting for? Yu Qianzhou shouted angrily. Hong Tai Long was the first to respond and charge out. Wan Tianbo and the others, who had reacted, immediately charged out in all directions. The meditation cultivators who were treated as cannon fodder immediately charged with all their might. Which side was the enemy and which side was the friend? Reality had already told them that if they didn't resist, only death awaited them. For a moment, the sounds of killing shook the sky. Demon King 3 knights naturally knew what would happen to those who were hit by his heavenly demon fist. How could he give Yu Qianzhou the chance to resolve the destructive force in his body? He arrived in the blink of an eye with a red beam of light. Yu Qianzhou shouted angrily, "Die!" Although his body was temporarily unable to retaliate, the 80 Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers, 10 Gold Soul Mystic Soldiers, and 2 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers that he had prepared in Utopia were immediately summoned. 2 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers were left to protect the main body, while the other 90 immediately pounced on the attacking Demon King 3 knights. Yu Qianzhou was determined not to run. If he, a late-stage great god, was defeated by a mid-stage great god, he wouldn't be able to show his face in the future. Therefore, he took the opportunity to quickly circulate his energy to resolve the strange force in his body. All of a sudden, so many monsters appeared, and all of them had extraordinary cultivation. Demon King 3 Knights, who had just rushed over, jumped in fright. Seeing that he was surrounded by so many experts, he shouted, "Rise!" The blood-red cloak behind him fluttered around his body, fluttering like a phantom. It was as if a bloody light was shooting out in all directions, and there was even a demonic dragon supporting him. In an instant, it blocked over 100 powerful attacks for him, and it continued to defend him from the violent attacks coming from all directions. Yu Qinshuo's teeth ached when he saw this. The demon god had clearly given 3 knights a super protective talisman. Although the cultivation of these mystic soldiers was not bad, their attack methods were very simple. Most of them relied on brute force, and their reactions were indeed much worse than a real person's. It was clearly impossible for them to break through this defense. Demon Blade. 3 knights let out another loud shout, and a huge crescent moon suddenly appeared in the vast green heaven and earth. There was a terrifying, baleful aura lingering around it, and it instantly flashed and circled around 3 knights' body. It actually destroyed all 90 profound weapons in an instant. Dust and gold powder filled the sky, and 90 beads fell into the Netherworld River. In his hands, the power of the demon blade was many times stronger than in Yan Zhuixing's hands. Chapter 12:14. Breaking through the encirclement in one fell swoop, 3 knights pointed with his finger. The demonic blade carried an unparalleled baleful aura as it slashed towards Yu Qinshuo with the power to split the heavens and split the earth. Yu Qinshuo had yet to completely dissolve the dark force in his body, so he was temporarily unable to move. However, being able to survive until today from a lowly tramp meant that he was no pushover. A golden light appeared in front of Yu Qinshuo. The sky-scraping arrow shot out like a shooting star, sending the demonic blade flying with a boom. When comparing the 2 divine weapons, it was clear that the sky-scraping arrow was superior. In addition, Yu Qinshuo's cultivation was higher than Demon King 3 Knights. When it came to divine weapons, the sky-scraping arrow was naturally not at a disadvantage. After defeating the opponent's sharpness in one move, the sky-scraping arrow immediately shot towards 3 knights. Demon King 3 Knights was shocked by the power of the divine arrow. He casually pulled on the blood-red cloak behind him, immediately wrapping it around his body. The divine arrow arrived in an instant, shooting out in a chaotic manner. Demon King 3 Knights had no intention of retreating. Under the blood-red cloak, his body was as slippery as a mudfish, twisting and turning like water. Every time the divine sword brushed past him, it was unable to touch him. The battle around him became even more intense. Even Demon King Tuanhai and Xiang Rong, who were hiding in the water, led their subordinates out of the water and joined the fierce battle. However, without Demon King 3 Knights and Eunuch Li holding the line, they were no match for the 60 or so deity-level experts in the Netherworld God Manor. Furthermore, with Wu Feng's divine wind staff and Wang Qing's sword-drawing style, the battle situation was unimaginably tragic. Wan Tianbua first sent a few deity-level experts to protect Madame Blackpool and Wu Xiong as they fought their way out of the encirclement. Then, he began a massacre. From the very beginning, he was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. In an instant, 2 of the 12 demon kings had been killed by him. Screams and the sounds of intense fighting mixed together. The demonic path immediately fell into a disadvantageous position, facing a massacre. The demon blade that was knocked away came back and attacked Yu Qinshuo again. Yu Qinshuo knew that the 2 Fire Soul profound soldiers protecting him were not a match for the Devil Blade. The heaven and earth splitting arrow that had failed to kill the Demon Lord 3 Knights immediately flashed back, and the Devil Blade seemed to have learned its lesson. With a strange transformation, it actually tangled with the heaven and earth splitting arrow, and for a moment, it was hard to tell who would win. Demon King 3 Knights took some time to look at the situation around him. Seeing that in this short amount of time, nearly half of his 12 demon kings had been lost, he immediately roared angrily, "Blood demon banner!" The blood-red cloak on his back immediately fell off his shoulders and shot out like a bloody rainbow. A beam of blood-colored light shot out in all directions like a blood dragon, devouring everything in its path. Wan Tian's cultivation was the highest, and his killing power was the strongest. He was Demon King 3 Nights' must-kill target, so he was caught off guard and was the first to bear the brunt of the Blood Demon Banner's attack. Yu Qianzhou also took some time to look. Before Wan Tianbua could break out of the restriction, he let out a miserable wail and shrank at a visible speed. In an instant, his blood was sucked dry. The Blood Demon Banner loosened, and he turned into a pile of broken bones that fell to the ground. This was just the beginning. Wherever the Blood Demon Banner went, nearly half of the 60 deity-level experts in the Netherworld God Manor were immediately killed. Over 30 deity-level experts had their blood sucked dry by the Blood Demon Banner. Meanwhile, the Blood Demon Banner's blood-colored light burst forth, and its ferocity increased. The demonic path heroes cheered and began to counterattack, while Yu Qianzhou's people immediately scattered. How could Yu Qianzhou let 3 nights continue like this? Disregarding his own safety, the 2 protectors beside him charged at 3 nights with their Fire Soul profound weapons. 3 nights was greatly alarmed. The Samadhi True Fire was no joke. However, the Devil Blade was already entangled by the Divine Arrow, so the Blood Demon Banner was immediately called back to protect him. Yu Qianzhou knew that without his help, the Devil Paths group was no match for the remaining people. He immediately shouted, "Retreat!" The Devil Paths group immediately turned around and ran. Yu Qianzhou's group quickly counterattacked. However, Demon King 3 Nights did not have any intention of retreating. With the Blood Demon Banner wrapped around his body, he carefully dealt with the 2 Fire Soul profound weapons and took the opportunity to approach Yu Qianzhou. At this time, Yu Qianzhou had already completely dissolved the dark energy in his body. Without the restriction of his elbow, he was not in a hurry to deal with Demon King 3 Nights. Instead, he teleported toward the retreating demonic path heroes and pushed out his palms as if they were going to set off an angry wave in the sea. He angrily shouted, "Absorbing Star Great Art!" In a split second, tens of thousands of demonic path heroes exploded into white mist, turning into dried corpses. The group of people he brought immediately rushed forward to clean up the corpses. It was impolite not to reciprocate. Yu Qianzhou was a vengeful person. In this first battle to completely eradicate the demonic path, he could not let 3 nights scare away the morale of his people. Otherwise, once everyone saw how powerful 3 nights was, who would dare to fight against the demonic path army with him in the future? Therefore, he immediately turned around and put the blame on them, telling everyone that they were not to be trifled with and that they did not need to be afraid of them. Hi. On the other side, 3 Nights angrily roared and quickly used Devil Light Sweep, breaking away from the entanglement of the 2 Fire Soul profound weapons. Wrapped in red light, he rushed toward Yu Qianzhou. Yu Qianzhou rushed forward without looking back. With a wave of his hand, he drew a prison behind him, and the Netherworld River immediately set off a tall blue wave, instantly turning into a thick ice wall to block. However, this was not enough to stop 3 Nights. Boom! A hole appeared in the thick ice wall. Just as 3 Nights rushed over, he saw a huge water dragon coiling behind Yu Qianzhou. It opened its mouth and spat out countless ice shards at him. However, it could not block 3 Nights' punch, and he directly rushed over. Although Yu Qianzhou was afraid of the Blood Demon Banner on 3 Nights' body, he still needed this little bit of time. A golden light flashed, and the heaven and earth splitting arrow was summoned back. It exploded in front of Yu Qianzhou into 10,000 streams of light, and 10,000 divine swords rapidly danced around him. 3 Nights, give me your life. Yu Qianzhou angrily roared and began to rush toward Demon King 3 Nights. Demon King 3 Nights was startled and wanted to dodge, but the two true Samadhi fire profound weapons behind him were already rushing over. However, the blood demon banner given to him by the demon god was definitely not something to look at. It wrapped around him and slid past the two profound weapons like red silk, escaping the siege. The Devil Blade arrived just in time to receive the attack. It was like a huge millstone that stirred up the Netherworld River below. One could see the bottom of the Netherworld River. Boom! Boom! The two profound soldiers turned into sparks, and two red beads fell into the Netherworld River. The true Samadhi fire on the Devil Blade was quickly extinguished by a layer of black and red baleful aura. Yu Qianqiu flicked his finger, and 1,000 divine swords shot out like meteors, directly defeating the demon blade. As he rushed over, he quickly collected the scattered Samadhi true fire. It would be a pity to waste it. Yu Qianqiu's body was wrapped in 7 colored flames, and he carried the divine swords as he charged at Sanyi. 3 knights pulled off the cloak behind him and threw it into the sky. In an instant, it turned into a blood-colored banner that covered the sky. Like a whirlwind, it enveloped Yu Qianqiu and his sword in a boundless sea of blood. Everywhere he looked, there was a hazy bloodlight, and it was so piercing that it hurt one's eyes. Yu Qianqiu was secretly shocked. He waved his hand, and 10,000 divine swords shot out in all directions. Although the divine swords were sharp, they seemed to have stabbed onto cotton that was filled with a huge elasticity. They expanded the sea of blood, but they were unable to tear it apart. Yu Qianqiu immediately called back the divine swords, and they circled around him to protect him. At the same time, he secretly contacted Utopia, and when he realized that the connection wasn't severed, he immediately felt relieved. He clenched his fist and shouted, 10,000 swords as one break. The 10,000 divine swords immediately merged into one and shot out rapidly. Unexpectedly, a bloody mouth immediately opened up in the sea of blood and swallowed the divine swords. Behind Yu Qianqiu, another bloody mouth opened up and spat out a beam of golden light. Yu Qianqiu suddenly turned around and was shocked. He realized that the divine arrows that he had shot out in front of him had been spat out from behind him. He was a little confused. He was naturally unwilling to accept this. The divine arrows darted around randomly, but they couldn't hurt the sea of blood at all. Often, when he shot out from the front, the divine arrows would come out from the back. When he shot out from the top, they would come out from the bottom. When he shot out from the left, they would come out from the right. It was extremely unbelievable. After his futile efforts, he shook his shoulder, and the true Samadhi fire on his body immediately shot out a ball. In the end, it was also swallowed by the sea of blood, and it was spat out from the other side. He wanted to use the true Samadhi fire to destroy the sea of blood, but he didn't have the chance to touch him. Ha! Demon King 3 Knights laughed crazily. He surged out from the sea of blood and looked at Yu Qianqiu with his arms crossed. He sneered and said, "This is the endless sea of blood in the blood demon banner. It is a space of its own. This world is my world. You can forget about escaping." "Tui, do I need to escape to deal with you?" Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else. The divine arrows shot out, but Demon King 3 Knights silently hid within. As expected, the divine arrows came out from behind him. Demon King 3 Knights' laughter rang out in the space of the sea of blood again. "I think you should just tuck your tail between your legs and admit defeat. Otherwise, don't blame my blood demon banner for being merciless. I will refine you into a drop of essence blood in this sea of blood. Don't give me that. Provocation is useless against this daddy. This daddy's words are like a nail. If I say I won't escape, I won't escape." Yu Qianqiu spat as he looked left and right, trying to think of a way to break out of this. "Fine, then let's see if you have the guts." Demon King 3 Knights laughed cruelly. The sea of blood in all directions immediately trembled. It was as if countless blood skeletons had opened their bloody mouths at Yu Qianqiu. The screams of countless vengeful ghosts were ear-piercing. Yu Qianqiu immediately knew something was wrong. The blood in his body boiled, and even his cultivation showed signs of leaking out. He tried his best to suppress it, but he couldn't hold it back anymore. His face turned red. He thought to himself, this daddy didn't lose to Demon King 3 nights, but to a demon god. Since I can't beat a demon god, it's not wrong to run. Yu Qianqiu had just found an excuse to comfort himself by running away when the nascent soul in his dantian, which had been implicated, suddenly erupted with a dazzling golden light. Even Yu Qianqiu's body was covered with a faint layer of golden light. The bloody skulls in the surrounding blood sea immediately let out countless miserable screams, as if they were ghosts that had been trapped in the netherworld for a long time and had finally seen the sun. The powerful suction force was immediately dispelled. Yu Qianqiu was overjoyed. This star bead was indeed miraculous. Thus, he gave up on the idea of escaping and prepared to think of another way to break this blood demon banner. Demon King 3 Nights' voice came from the sea of blood. What's going on? Chapter 12:15. He didn't seem to understand why the blood devil banner didn't have any effect on Yu Qianqiu. He tried to use it a few times, but he found that it was trembling as if it had met its nemesis. Yu Qianqiu cackled and pointed at the sea of blood. San Yi, Grandpa's here. Do you dare come out and fight to the death? San Yi didn't pay attention to him. He was trying to figure out what was wrong with the blood devil banner. Pa, the supreme of the devil world is actually a coward. Yu Qianqiu spat. Suddenly, his eyes turned as if he thought of something. He threw the divine arrow in his hand, and it once again exploded into countless rays of light that shot in all directions. Just like before, it expanded the entire sea of blood, but it was unable to break it. However, it confirmed his guess that the power of the myriad swords as one arrow could break the sea of blood, which was why the sea of blood avoided it. But this sea of blood wasn't so miraculous that it was flawless. When attacked from all directions, it couldn't produce the miraculous effect of Samadhi true fire. And from the fact that the sea of blood avoided the Samadhi true fire, it could be seen that the true fire that could refine anything could restrain it. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he called back the 10,000 divine swords at the same time. They circled around him, and the Samadhi true fire attached to each divine sword. He waved his arm and shouted, "Break!" The divine swords with the 7 color flames once again shot out in all directions. As expected, the sea of blood was once again opened. The Samadhi true fire attached to the swords quickly stuck to the blood wall. The blood curtain in all directions immediately blossomed with brilliant fireworks. The 7 colored flames burned fiercely and spread. Black smoke filled the air, and the wails of countless ghosts from the netherworld resounded within the sea of blood. Seeing that it was effective, Yu Qianqiu laughed. San Yi, I'll let you see how I refine the treasure the devil god gave you. Huh, come out and accept your death, and I'll give you a quick death. Bullshit. Demon King 3 Nights cursed angrily, and the smoky and fiery blood sea space suddenly disappeared. The blood demon banner was put away, and Yu Qianqiu saw the sky of the underworld and the underworld river below. What was even more interesting was that Demon King 3 Nights was swinging his blood demon banner around as if he wanted to extinguish the true Samadhi fire attached to it. However, when the blood sea space closed, all of the true Samadhi fire immediately ignited the entire cloak. Even if 3 Nights was playing with fire, he did not dare to touch the true Samadhi fire. 10,000 specks of golden light shot out from the cloak. He had no choice but to throw away the blood demon banner and watch as this treasure fell into the river Styx. With a clang, the magic blade blocked the attack of the divine sword for him, allowing him to teleport away from the concentrated attacks. The moment Yu Qianqiu came out, he pounced over without hesitation. He grabbed a divine sword in each hand, and 1,000 divine swords followed him to attack San Yi. The other divine swords trapped the devil blade, and the battle in the underworld was earth-shattering. "Don't run. Stop right there." Yu Qianzhou's savage voice resounded in all directions. He chased after San Yi relentlessly, cursing nonstop. However, he had divine weapons, and San Yi was barehanded. How could he dare to fight him head-on? He could only run away. Even though Yu Qianzhou's cultivation was higher than his, the flying speed of his magic ray glimpse was indeed astonishing. Although he had to use it constantly, he would use it again after running for a distance and seeing that Yu Qianzhou was about to catch up. The two of them circled around the underworld one after the other. One was relentlessly chasing, and the other was reluctant to let go of the Devil Blade. He wanted to circle back and snatch the Devil Blade before fighting again. The remaining experts of the Netherworld Divine Office who were chasing after the demonic cultivators led a group of Netherworld cultivators back. They did not dare to split up to chase after the fleeing demonic cultivators, afraid that they would be ambushed. When they returned and saw that Yu Qianzhou was chasing Demon King 3 Knights everywhere, not only did their morale soar, but they were also in an uproar. They never thought that the Demon King 3 Knights, whose name shook the 3 realms, would end up in such a state. Haha, this kid is killing to his heart's content. Hong Tailong excitedly rubbed his palms together when he saw this scene. He had the urge to run and join the battle, but he also knew that the difference in strength between him and Demon King 3 Knights was too great. Running was no different from throwing his life away. The others did not dare to easily join the battle between experts of this level. Li, who was lucky to survive, had a bitter expression when she saw this scene. She had originally wanted to kill Yu Qianzhou to avenge her brother, but now it seemed that it was a huge joke. Moreover, she now knew that she was no longer the high and mighty third princess. She was a withered willow that others were unwilling to meet directly. She still remembered the scene of Yu Qianzhou talking to her with his back facing her. Actually, Yu Qianzhou did not want her to feel awkward. He understood that she was forced into a corner and felt pity for her. However, she still thought that way. San Yi, run your ancestor. Don't run if you have the guts. Yu Qianzhou could not catch up to him and could not do anything to him. He shouted angrily, "Nonsense! You don't even have the qualifications to catch up to this lord." "What qualifications do you have to fight this lord?" San Yi sneered as he ran. As expected, he was not to be trifled with. F***CK. You win. Yu Qianzhou stopped with a whoosh. He knew that continuing to chase like this was not a solution. He straightforwardly said, "This old man will return the Devil Blade to you. I'll let you fight freely with this old man. Don't F***king do such a shameful thing again." Countless golden lights were summoned back, and the Devil Blade immediately flashed back into Demon King 3 Knights' hand. Holding the Devil Blade, San Yi was stunned. He quickly glanced at the depths of the Netherworld River that was flickering with rainbow light. There were still muffled screams of malicious spirits. He also knew that the true Samadhi fire was not afraid of water. Clearly, he was still refining his blood demon banner. While his heart ached, he also knew that the Devil Blade alone would not be able to defeat Yu Qianzhou's heaven and earth splitting arrow. He could only leave first and think of a way to contact Lord Demon God of the Immortal Realm for help. Thus, he gritted his teeth and executed the demonic light glimpse to its limit. With a whoosh, he disappeared from everyone's sight and directly flew towards the passageway that led to the Immortal Realm from the Netherworld. Instantly, Yu Qianzhou cursed, "Despicable, shameless, coward." After he finished cursing, he sneered. With a flash, he arrived at the bottom of the Netherworld River and quickly collected the 92 soldier souls that he had knocked down. Then, he used the true Samadhi fire to completely refine the blood demon banner into ashes. Only then did he put away the true Samadhi fire. After emerging from the bottom of the Netherworld River, everyone flew over to look at him. Everyone's intentions were very clear. They were going to follow his lead in slaying demons and defending the Tao. Hong Tailong directly asked, "What do we do next? Are we going to let San Yi run?" "Run?" Yu Qianzhou sneered nonstop. Then his expression turned serious as he pointed at Wu Feng and said, Wu Feng and Madame He Qi quickly contact the old subordinates of the Netherworld and all the heroes of the Netherworld to form a demonic slaying army. First, clean up the Netherworld and eliminate the demonic cultivators. Then, we will meet up with Heartless Palace and contact all the heroes of the Immortal Realm to clean up the Immortal Realm. Then, we will go to the Human Realm. Finally, we will gather all the armies to attack the demonic realm and completely eradicate the demonic cultivators. If anyone is unwilling to contribute, then kill them. Damn it! If they don't contribute at this time, then they're demonic cultivators and cannot be left alive. He was bossing people around here and directly giving orders. Wu Feng's family didn't feel unhappy at all. Instead, they were overjoyed. After the three realms were pacified, even if they didn't take the first merit, they wouldn't be able to run away from dominating a region. Wu Feng immediately stood up. He held the wind god's staff and cupped his hands, saying, "I dare not to obey." "All right," Yu Qianqiu nodded. He looked at the remaining 30 or so deity experts in the Netherworld God Manor and said, "Then I'll have to trouble everyone to help them for now. After this, there will be many benefits for everyone." These people naturally cupped their hands and accepted the order. It was fine as long as they didn't have to face Demon King 3 nights. Speed is crucial in war. Everyone, move out immediately. I'll go kill Demon King 3 nights. After Yu Qianqiu gave the order, he called Hong Tai-long, and the two of them disappeared from everyone's sight. With Yu Qianqiu's clear support, Wu Feng didn't feel the slightest bit sad about his foster father's death. He stood up and saluted everyone, then immediately began to make arrangements in an orderly manner. In front of the passageway to the Netherworld, Demon King 3 Knights stood there with a gloomy expression. A group of subordinates guarded behind him. He didn't expect to be defeated even with Lord Demon God's support. Even the Blood Demon banner that Lord Demon God had given him was destroyed. His heart ached, but he knew that he couldn't blame it all on himself. Let alone him. Perhaps even Demon God didn't know that Yu Qianqiu's cultivation would grow so quickly. It was too abnormal. The morale of the demonic cultivators was low. Everyone was silent. At this moment, a few subordinates came from the immortal world and cupped their hands at Demon King 3 Knights and said, "Demon King, there is no ambush there." "All right." Demon King 3 Knights turned around and looked at his demoralized subordinates. He laughed loudly and said, "Victory and defeat are common in war. Everyone, don't be discouraged. It won't be long before we can regroup and make a comeback." Great Demon King Shun Hui cupped his hands worriedly and said, "Demon King, the situation isn't good for us. I'm afraid that Yu Qianqiu and the others will immediately organize the army of the 3 realms to take revenge on us. I'm afraid we can't stay in the 3 realms any longer." Demon King 3 Knights nodded and said, "That's right. This is what I'm worried about as well. So when we reach the immortal world, immediately send an order to everyone to quickly retreat to the demon world. Then we'll seal all the passageways to the outside world." Shun Hui immediately raised a question, that Yu Qianqiu can travel between realms at will. Will the demon world be able to stop him after we seal it? Demon King 3 Knights revealed a confident smile and said to everyone, "If it was before, I would also have this concern. But after communicating with Lord Demon God, I found out that Yu Qianqiu obtained the Star Orb, which is why he can travel between realms freely. Although Lord Demon God doesn't know much about the Star Orb, he knows of one of its flaws. Only places that Yu Qianqiu has been to can be entered again. Moreover, all the passageways to the demon world have always been guarded by our people. So, we can deduce that Yu Qianqiu hasn't entered the demon world yet. As long as we seal it from the inside, he won't be able to come in." Shenhui didn't completely relax after hearing this answer. Instead, he reminded them again, if they also seal the demon world from the outside, then wouldn't we be trapped in a cocoon of our own making? "Huh, you've thought it through, but you're worrying too much." Demon King 3 Knights said passionately to everyone, "There's something I don't mind telling you. Lord Demon God has already given us a way to contact him. If we encounter any difficulties that we can't solve, we can look for him. With Lord Demon God's power, can't he open a mirror seal? This time, we're returning to the demon world to avoid even greater losses. More importantly, I need to set up the Demon God communication formation and contact Lord Demon God in the God world. I need him to help us again. Do you have any other concerns? Chapter 12:16. Hearing that Lord Demon God would help them again, the gloominess in everyone's hearts was swept away. Thinking about Lord Demon God's might in the past, they all became excited. Shun Hui bowed first and said, "We are willing to follow Demon Lord to the death." The group naturally responded, and the morale of the crowd rose. Demon Lord 3 Knights, who had stabilized the army, waved his hand and said, "Return to Soldier Demon World, depart." The vanguard immediately passed through the exit of the underworld. The rest of the army brought up the rear with Demon Lord 3 Knights in the middle. The group entered the celestial world in a grandiose manner. The entrance to the underworld from the celestial world had already been destroyed when Wang Qing broke the formation left behind by Bai Qi. The spinning black light was already in the open canyon. In a mountain on the side of the canyon, 2 pairs of eyes stared at the Demon Dao army that had appeared at the entrance. They're out. Shall we begin?" Hong Tai Long, who was hiding in the mountain, transmitted. Squatting beside him, Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes as he looked outside and replied, "What's the rush? The person I want to kill is Demon Lord 3 Knights. As long as I get rid of this guy, the others will be easy to deal with. I've already set up a net of 10,000 divine swords. Just wait a little longer." Before he finished speaking, Demon Lord 3 Knights rushed out from the center of the army. His eyes glowed red as he scanned the surroundings. Clearly, he was still afraid of an ambush. Yu Qianqiu's eyes widened, and the moment he opened his mouth, "Go to hell!" he blasted open the mountain with a single punch. His body flashed into the air, and his palms covered the ground below. He shouted angrily, "Absorbing Star's great art! Yu Qianqiu!" Demon Lord 3 Knights was shocked. He didn't expect the other party to really be lying in ambush here. Black devil flames quickly surged out of his body, and he used the blazing devil aura to block the Absorbing Star's great skill. However, the people around him didn't have as strong a defense as him, and they all exploded into white mist. After blocking the attack, Demon Lord 3 Knights instinctively wanted to flee. But almost at the same time, the valley and the ground around him exploded with 10,000 golden lights. Instantly, the group of people were killed, and their cries were even uglier than ghosts. The 3 vanguard great demon kings also lost their lives under the sneak attack of the Absorbing Star's great technique and the divine sword. The devil blade flashed out of the storage bracelet on his wrist. Boom! A path was carved out. Demon King 3 Knights turned into a streak of light and fled, while the devil blade covered his retreat. "Trap it for me." Yu Qianqiu pointed angrily at the devil blade. It was always this fellow who spoiled his plans. He had to find a way to get rid of it. Tens of thousands of divine swords emitted dazzling golden light, forming a messy iron frame, firmly holding the demonic blade that was trying to break free. Yu Qianqiu's 5 fingers stretched out, instantly sending it into Utopia. The moment the struggling demon blade entered Utopia, it fell to the ground like a piece of scrap metal, completely severing its connection with Demon Lord 3 Knights. Although it was still a divine weapon, it was equivalent to a divine weapon that no one could control. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He didn't expect his desperate action to have an unexpected effect. Demon King 3 Knights, who didn't want to give up on the Devil Blade and was about to use his speed to play in circles with Yu Qianqiu again, panicked. He realized that he had completely lost contact with the Devil Blade. No matter how he tried to summon it, there was no response. The result was that the Devil Blade was controlled by someone or destroyed. However, neither of these results was what he wanted to see. The 2 divine weapons that the demonic god had given him were gone after playing with them for a few days. How could he face the Lord demonic god now? He immediately roared, "You Chincho, return my devil blade. Grandpa's here." Yu Chincho laughed maniacally. Tens of thousands of divine swords danced around him as he charged straight at three knights. On the other side, Hong Tailong had already charged out and was engaged in a fierce battle with Shun Hui and the other two great demon kings who were bringing up the rear. Although Hong Tailong could not defeat the three of them who had joined forces, he was able to withstand a few hits with the help of the dragon tribe's innate thick skin and flesh. For a moment, he was laughing maniacally as he fought. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu was charging at him and that his subordinates were engaged in a fierce battle, Demon Lord Three Knights decisively roared at his subordinates, "Don't continue fighting. Quickly send a message to everyone else." Yes. Shen Hui and the others immediately fled in all directions. Hong Tailong chased after one of them relentlessly. He wasn't interested in those small fries. Demon Lord Three Knights' cultivation was inferior to Yu Qianqiu's in the first place. Now that he had lost his two divine weapons, how could he dare to fight against Yu Qianqiu, who had a high-grade divine weapon? Where there's life, there's hope. He gritted his teeth and fled immediately. Three Knights, stop right there. Yu Qianqiu also chased after him relentlessly. Unfortunately, the demonic-like glimpse had the advantage in speed. Even though his cultivation was higher, he still couldn't catch up. However, after being shaken off a distance, he was able to catch up again. However, Three Knights cast the demonic-like glimpse again and shook him off. Just like that, the two of them got closer and separated and got closer again. This time, Yu Qianqiu was determined not to let go. Demon Lord Three Knights instantly panicked. His cultivation was inferior to Yu Qianqiu's, and he couldn't keep casting the demonic-like glimpse. When the demonic aura in his body was almost depleted, he would be caught up sooner or later. And if this continued, Yu Qianqiu would definitely enter the demon world right after him. Then, he wouldn't have the time to seal the demon world. Three Knights, don't you want to know the whereabouts of your son, Yi Tiankong? As long as you stop, I promise to tell you everything in detail. Yu Qianqiu shouted as he chased. In order to kill his opponent, he was willing to use all kinds of tricks. The two of them ran as fast as lightning. Three Knights turned around and scolded. T. Don't give me that. Do you really think I'm a 3-year-old kid? CK. I'm a man of my words. I've never lied. Why don't you believe me? I might as well tell you directly. Listen carefully. Although he was speaking nonsense, he didn't slow down at all. Instead, he sped up with all his might. As long as his opponent was discouraged, he would rush forward and kill him. Thus, he shouted as he chased, "Three Knights, have you heard of the Myriad Swords Demon Lord? The Myriad Swords Demon Lord is your son, Yi Tiankong. You probably never even dreamed of it." Hearing this, Demon Lord Three Knights' mind trembled. He subconsciously considered the possibility of this matter. Although he didn't slow down, he temporarily forgot to use the demonic-like glimpse. The distance between the two of them was quickly shortened. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. Psychological tactics were indeed effective. The opportunity was now, and he couldn't miss it. The 10,000 swords that were flying around him quickly merged together and shot out while the two of them were getting closer. Demon Lord Three Knights suddenly woke up and looked back. He was almost scared out of his wits. He quickly used the demonic-like glimpse, but he felt an unforgettable pain in his shoulder blade. The divine arrow had pierced his shoulder blade, but before it could injure him deeply, his opponent had escaped in time. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. If the divine arrow had pierced his body, he would have been able to kill Demon Lord Three Knights in one fell swoop. It was a pity that he had escaped in time. Three Knights, Yi Tiankong's life is in my hands. As long as you surrender, I promise to let Yi Tiankong go. Otherwise, I will make him wish he was dead. Yu Qianqiu used the same trick and tried to use psychological tactics again. However, Demon Lord Three Knights wasn't an idiot and wouldn't fall for it a second time. After all, no one would joke around with their life. Demon Lord Three Knights, who was running away, suddenly roared towards the sky. Blood spurted out from the wound on his shoulder blade, forming a blood snake that coiled in his outstretched palm. The blood snake quickly condensed into a ball of blood. Yu Qianqiu's pupils shrank. He had a bad feeling about this scene. His opponent wouldn't harm himself for no reason. Demon Lord Three Knights suddenly turned around with the ball of blood in his hand. He knew that although his cultivation was lower than Yu Qianqiu's, his demonic arts were one of the best in the world. If Yu Qianqiu didn't rely on the sharpness of the heaven and earth splitting arrow and fought him with his bare fists, he was completely confident that he could kill Yu Qianqiu. The demonic god great art-killing experts that were stronger than him was not a rare thing. However, some things are just facts, and there was no if. Yu Qianqiu, today's humiliation, I will make you pay back 1,000 times in the future. Just you wait. Demon Lord Three Knights roared fiercely. He resolutely turned around and crushed the ball of blood in his hand. In an instant, the red light exploded and engulfed his body. Not good. It's blood escape. Yu Qianqiu rushed into the red mist that filled the sky. His divine arrows exploded into thousands of golden lights that shot out in all directions. However, the red mist in the sky was collapsing and shrinking rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it formed a small blood scab that fell to the ground. Demon Lord Three Knights was nowhere to be seen. He didn't even have a trace of his aura. Damn it, you can escape once, but you can't escape forever. Unless you're no longer in the Three Realms, I want to see where you can run to. Yu Qianqiu was looking around and muttering. Suddenly, his expression changed as if he thought of something. He quickly said, "How could I forget about the demon realm?" His figure quickly disappeared in the sky. He didn't directly plant any coordinates at the entrance to the demon realm, but he did plant coordinates that were close to it. After he quickly teleported, he immediately rushed over with all his strength. When the pale-faced Demon Lord Three Knights suddenly appeared at the entrance to the demon realm, Yao Erlang, who was leading 100,000 soldiers to guard this place, immediately went over in shock and asked what had happened. Demon Lord Three Knights gave a simple explanation of what had happened, then ordered him to immediately order the army to retreat to the demon realm. Every bit of strength they could preserve was a bit of it. Yes, Yao Erlang was the first to obey, but then he couldn't help but ask, "Demon Lord, once we seal the demon realm, what will happen to the rest of our army? Won't we be cutting off their last path of retreat?" "There's no time. The situation is urgent." Demon Lord Three Knights angrily waved his hand and said, "I used blood escape to escape from Yu Qianqiu's pursuit. With Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, he probably won't even need a day to get here. The rest of the army won't be able to return to the demon realm before him. In order to protect the overall situation, we can only sacrifice them. In the future, when I make a comeback, I will definitely avenge them." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.